He'll tell you why.
Somewhere here to have
Oh, here's
like a list of remaining meetings.
We only have one meeting scheduled left.
Big problem. No, just come on, I'm trying to message 2 years. Ron's like, no.
No, I have only one on the calendar. I just wanted to make sure I had it right.
Because it's no longer ad hoc. Okay, guys, can you do, Regis, can you do, a roll call?
Sure. Michael Van. Here. Julie Bassner. George Gonzalez.
Present.
Elizabeth Latone.
Present.
Samuel Raven. Ronald Starkman.
Here.
Yeah, so like, so the,
Yeah, whatever.
but he's tired of it.
He just like.
Jump right.
He's doing his day job. Okay, are we you guys ready, Dick and company?
Yes.
First item, I haven't heard from Julie, she may come. First item is the, welcome everybody, as well, we're kind of landing the plane hopefully soon. First item is the minutes, anybody want to make a motion on that?
We'll move.
Moved by Michael, second by Ron, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, mark it as approved unanimous. Okay, we've got a couple of items on this agenda, including some follow-ups from past discussions. But the long-awaited and much discussed and well-considered Bill of Rights. Want to do that one, Nick?
Yes, so we're on item number 2, which is proposed amendments to the Citizens Bill of Rights, remedies and draft ballot questions.
So in the agenda is an outline. It's the same outline that was placed on the last quarter of Q4 agenda. And it's an outline of the issues showing the issues that the board has discussed and voted upon for inclusion. The only remaining issues that have yet to be decided are the penalty issues. And those are 2. The first penalty issue is the matter of attorney's fees that the board has previously had some discussion about, but we've never had a final vote. We've expressed to you our concerns about the issue of attorney's fees, both from the fact of being potential partial conflict, also the likelihood of increased lawsuits for the city. But the other things that we just want to point out about the attorney's fees issue, just to take into consideration, is that if the board does vote to impose attorney's fees, there are, we took a look at the statutes that presently authorize attorney's fees when a municipality is in the state of Florida. And interestingly, with regards to the 2 issues, the 2 Bill of Rights issues that seem to have been the most discussed before the board, namely public records and sunshine law, the statutes presently provide that plaintiffs, citizens who bring a lawsuit for sunshine law and attorney's fees are entitled to get fees. As far as the city in those cases, the municipalities are entitled to get fees only if the city can evidence that the plaintiffs acted in bad faith or the case was filed frivolous. So even if there is a lawsuit, the city wins a public records lawsuit. And this has happened before. The city has had cases where the city has been sued on fees and sunshine law public records cases. The city will not get fees if they're the prevailing party unless they can show bad faith or frivolousness. As for the remaining issues, though, in the Bill of Rights, because the suggestion has been made by the committee to insert attorney's fees as a global penalty. If that is the case, then legal's recommendation is that the fees be reasonable and they be reciprocal, meaning that if the city does win those cases, the city, just as the plaintiff would be entitled to receive fees, reasonable fees, the city should be entitled to receive reasonable fees too, because it's only fair, because the city expends funds to do that. But that's why we also suggest including the words except as otherwise provided by law to address the
You
situation where.
can't for those that you mentioned. at the beginning.
Exactly,
So it would be for
Exactly.
all others.
exactly.
So it's
What
like
was
a
it?
prevailing parties, whoever wins gets the.
Yep.
That's what you're saying.
Reasonable attorney's fees, reasonable attorney's fees.
And that's, hang on, before, is there another issue as well, or is that?
There is one more issue.
Let's
for
hit it all out.
penalties. The remaining issue for penalties is there presently is language in the city's Bill of Rights. Keeping in mind that the city's Bill of Rights originally was drafted modeled after the county's Bill of Rights. The language, the penalty provision has a forfeiture of office or employment provision, which basically says that if there is a action and it is found that an officer or an employee has willfully violated the Bill of Rights, then that officer or employee may be subject to having their office or employment forfeited. The county in 2016 had a voter referendum on that to delete the forfeiture of officer employment remedy. And in its place expressly provided that the Dade County Ethics Commission would have enforcement powers in addition to being able to go to court. The voters, the countywide voters, including Miami Beach voters, part of the county, approved that ballot question. So fast forward here, Miami Beach is, we still have the, I say for lack of a better term, the old language, including forfeiture, which falls under the same conflict issue concern that we've expressed before because it's a stricter penalty. However, if the board, much like the issue of attorney's fees, if the board votes to retain the forfeiture, then there should be language expressly providing that that forfeiture of office or employment is subject to collective bargaining, because pursuant to state law, collective bargaining agreements would take precedence with regards to any removal from office or, excuse me, any employment situation. So those are our recommendations.
Just for clarification before we get into the questions, I recall when we discussed this before, that the Ethics Commission has jurisdiction over like the first 15 or some number of these that were like copies of the county's ethics, the county's Bill of Rights, and then the ones that are not specifically the county's.
You know,
17, 18, 19, 20, whatever.
I hear you, George. It's kind of, I hate to give this answer. It's a matter of interpretation. And the reason why I say that is this. The county's Bill of Rights says that the County Ethics Commission has jurisdiction over the county Bill of Rights and municipal Bill of Rights, municipalities' Bill of Rights. So we interpret that to mean that the County Ethics Commission has jurisdiction over our Bill of Rights.
All of them.
That's how we read it, but it is a matter of
Do
interpretation.
they see it that way? If a
I don't know.
violation came forward, violating number 21, for example, just because that's a new one, they would be the authority having jurisdiction, or would it be?
I
Would
don't
that
know
need
the
to be
answer to that.
made?
I don't know that we've had one.
We haven't
yeah,
had
I
a situation
with
like
the-
that.
with the citizens' Bill of
We
Rights.
haven't.
Yeah,
We haven't, but again, the county code expressly provides that the Bill of Rights, that the Ethics Commission's jurisdiction extends to municipal Bill of Rights, just like with ethics laws. The county ethics laws expressly provide that the County Ethics Commission has jurisdiction over municipal ethics codes.
I guess I'm trying to recall what because y'all took care to make the distinction that there's some number, 11, 12, I forget the exact number, that are complete copies of the county's Bill of Rights. And then there's a whole bunch more that were added additional to.
Yeah, there's
What's
a
the-
few more.
Right,
Yeah.
what's the nuance of the what distinguishes? Other than that they're different, I get it, but
we made that distinction,
that we
when,
can't change the other ones, maybe that.
when this first came up
Right.
about the potential conflict if we adopted different penalties
A stricter
from
penalty.
a stricter penalty from what the county Bill of Rights establishes for violations of the county Bill
Of
of
theirs.
Rights. Yeah,
Got it,
yeah.
okay.
And our
so-
recommendation was it would be, kind of difficult to administer, one set of penalties for paragraphs one through,
Yeah.
So going back then to number one here, attorney's fees. Those would only apply to the non-county ones? Or,
No, what Nick just said is that it would be very difficult to have bifurcated penalties. Very
okay, so you're
difficult.
saying.
But we're
we can
saying,
both?
we're still concerned with that conflict issue, but if we say except as otherwise provided by law, we'd be able to argue. We'd be able to have some argument that the county penalties would apply to the county bill of rights.
Okay,
And also, if you decide to include attorney's fees, that the statutory provisions where they do not allow municipalities flat out to have attorney's fees, that we would say that,
right.
you know, the acceptance otherwise provided by law, we abide by the statutes.
Yeah, couple questions. Well, Charlie, on the attorney's fees thing, so as you said, that if somebody is suing the city, if I understood it correctly, then the city doesn't have the right to recover. If they prevail, they don't recover, they can't ask for the other party to pay the city's
On certain.
On certain sunshine law
Public.
and on certain public records cases pursuant to
sunshine law
statute.
and such, okay.
There's a
So-
statute steps in.
So, in terms, as it's currently written, does the city have the ability through the current law to recover, the legal fees? Or is in other cases, or is this something that we're now considering adding to this?
This is new.
It's new.
Okay, so I have some hesitation, I'll just say what the concern is that for an individual citizen, whatever, to bring a case against the city, that they don't have, with few exceptions, they probably don't have the resources of the city. So the penalty, so is it not enough of a deterrence to have to pay your own legal fees? And, you know, in terms of just doing frivolous stuff. And but to ask to say that all of a sudden you not only have to pay your fee, but you also have to pay the cities, whether that is too chilling, much of a chilling effect on citizens who may have a legitimate case, but you know, turns out it goes against them, but in those cases, but if in a lot of cases, maybe won't be brought.
Yeah, no, I share it. Question, you mentioned that Gina, the bad faith or is that
Frivolous.
for frivolous? Is that for all of them or just the public records ones? When you say
The
that.
Florida statutes right now for certain public records lawsuits
Okay,
and for certain sunshine law violations authorize municipalities to obtain attorney's fees only when it can be evidence that the plaintiff acted in bad faith or the case was filed frivolously. By the way, I just want to correct one thing. We're looking at the county Bill of Rights. The Commission on Ethics, the county Bill of Rights says, the Commission on Ethics and Public Trust, they're talking about the county ethics commission, may also enforce, because they're talking about in addition to going to court, may also enforce the provisions of this article and may impose any penalty authorized by county code not otherwise prohibited by a collective bargaining agreement for a violation of this article. So looking at this, it does appear that the County Ethics Commission only has jurisdiction over over the county.
that was my question.
Yeah,
Is that, so who would have jurisdiction over the city?
it's the court.
It would have to be.
It would be the court.
That's the only
So
remedy.
we
So
need
it
to,
almost argues more for what you're saying. If
Yeah.
that's my only remedy and now I've got to come out of pocket and bear a risk,
Right.
is
I
that
think
really an
that's-
option?
I think that's too heavy of a
Bridge
word.
You're a lawyer, what-
Let's- I have a question.
Or you say you are. Good. Hey,
Oh, I
Unless
think
you're
you're
an
right.
attorney.
No, Nick just.
Sorry, George, there is another section in the county code creating the Commission on Ethics and Public Trust.
Oh.
That the jurisdiction of the Ethics Commission does extend. To municipal, county or municipal codes of ethics, conflict of interest ordinances, lobbyist registration. Ethical campaign practices or citizens' bill of rights, so it does
So it
include,
does.
so they do have
Okay.
authority over our
Yeah.
bill of rights, yeah.
Relief.
Right.
I withdraw my question.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean.
Well, I'm more
Yeah, I
feels like
think-
you're-
I thought it was
I'm more
similar to-
concerned
thank
with Joe Citizen. Who views a situation, doesn't have the resources to move forward. Has to come out of pocket, how many people would be willing to do that? But if there is a provision for reasonable attorney's fees and a lawyer looks at it and says, I think you're right, we ought to sue the city. You know, I don't see why we shouldn't be proponents of that view. Now, you want to add on the issue of if you lose, the city,
That's the part I'm concerned about. not
well, that's
first
the part I'm concerned about as well. What's a reasonable attorney fee for a city? For a city attorney? We all may have our view what the city attorneys work.
Well, that, I mean, the issue of attorney's fees computation. You know, we know is an issue after, whenever there's a lawsuit and attorney's fees are claimed. There's a separate hearing determining the reasonable attorney's fees, and there is case law that addresses the issue of what are reasonable attorney's fees for governmental attorneys.
What's your sense?
My question was, what's reasonable? And so that applies to both.
Court
But there's a
But- but I
there's a
mean,
methodology
but I-
for that.
that-
There are cases that give you.
But if
the
you've got,
standard.
but going back up to the first question, which we're still in second, but I am gonna bring it up. It says, no unreasonable postponements notice. What is unreasonable? Who determines what all of that is? So that's in both questions.
Yeah,
So I don't,
What-
so
I
where you
think-
may have computations for the second, one, you're not gonna have it for the first.
Could we, Gene, could we
Do the
say
word,
in
yeah.
regard to the city's obligation that if there's a determination that the original suit was made in bad faith, then the city could collect attorney's
apply
fees.
the standard that they use for public records.
Right,
I would go with something like that.
yeah, but not in all cases, but yeah.
So you described that the city can only secure city's fees if there was frivolous or bad faith on the public records. Or that's what the state says. Can we take that same standard and say, okay, for Bill of Rights litigation, the city it's not a prevailing party unless the person behaved in bad faith or, which is what the state standard is.
For other violations,
For other
meaning not
violations.
relating to.
Non-related to
sunshine law or
public-
public records.
Apply the same standard to the non-public records ones.
Because somebody is already taking.
So
the
wait,
risk and out of
so, but for the public record, the sunshine law, you're saying that bad faith and frivolous standard would not apply?
No.
No.
So
The
you're
same-
saying that bad
They're
faith and
using that
frivolous apply
standard
globally?
Yeah.
for
Right.
others litigation.
Well, we are the lawyers representing the city and we'll tell you. Maybe I'll let Dick.
Well, you thinking, well, no, are you thinking so that a plaintiff could only recover fees against?
No,
the city?
No,
no,
the
no,
city
no,
could only recover.
Right,
The
right
plaintiffs
now,
would
you're-
obtain
right now what you're
fees if
saying-
they win.
If I'm clear, what you've said is that a plaintiff, if they filed a complaint, violation of the Bill of Rights related to sunshine or public records, they would receive their attorney's fees. If the city won, the city would not unless bad faith or frivolous.
You know,
And
it,
I'm saying now, not just public records and sunshine, I'm saying
Yeah.
all 24 of them.
right,
I mean, I think that we can never recommend to you an amendment that's going to increase exposure to this, just from a risk standpoint, I could not advise you to do.
Well, it invites the council, the commission.
Currently,
Our job is to kind of
right, yeah, we're.
explore that now.
we're
We're not
citizens.
disagreeing with you. We're saying we're the citizens who are advocating for.
Well, But I'm still a little fuzzy on, is this a change? And with the current under the current law or charter,
There's no prevailing one party.
if there is no,
Yes.
there is no requirement, there is no prevailing
A resident.
there
has
is
to
no
come out
provision for fees
for
at all,
for either side.
Either side.
for anybody, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And
So
by the
that-
way, not that I'm saying this is the determining factor, but just so that you all have all the facts. There is no charter, at least in Dade County that we've looked at, that has attorney's fees. The one city that expressly says no fees is the city of Miami.
Expressly says
Well,
what?
there's-
No.
Expressly says
I think
no
we'll take
fees.
we take the
Yeah,
opposite.
Does a judge have, if we don't put it in here, if we just left things the way they are, does a judge have the authority to, in a case where somebody wins, to say, and city, and as part of the judgment, the attorney's fees will also be included?
No. Attorney's fees awards, when you go to court are premised on three things. Number one, if there is a contract that entitles you to fees. Number two, if there is a particular law or statute that entitles you to get fees. Or number three, if there is, if a party proves that the case was frivolous. If they won the case and they evidenced to the court that it is frivolous, and there's a whole standard to evaluate, determine for a court to determine it, like it's lacking any justiciable law or facts that they should, that would have warranted the case.
Somebody
But
was-
short of that, no.
if somebody was to say, let's say this situation, I was not, I had a right to speak and I was not allowed to speak. And so they decide to pursue the city for a violation of the Bill of Rights. Because their rights were violated. There wouldn't be any compensation to them, so if they're just doing this to sort of.
government, yeah.
To sort of good government. It seems to me that at a minimum, they should get their attorney's fees back so they're controlled.
But then why shouldn't the city get the fees?
Because the city's resources are so much greater, and if the idea behind the Bill of Rights is to try to level the is to give more authority,
Citizen.
power to the citizens.
Well, the only thing that I would just
So,
throw out
and
there
the
is in
problem
terms
that
of,
the enforcement is so weak. The only enforcement that they really have is to try to go to the courts and say something,
or they can go to the ethics commission.
but it may not be an ethics.
No, but they have,
There is jurisdiction.
they have jurisdiction.
I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, the way I read this is you guys were crafting, there were two separate questions,
Right.
Right, there's
We
one that
couldn't
is,
fit it all in one.
so I get it, and that's fair. Maybe we approve both, I'm inclined to remove the city's portion of the prevailing. And let's put it out there and let the commission decide not to, but as a recommendation of this body, I think that's an improvement. And if they don't put it on the ballot, they don't put it on the ballot. If they put it on the ballot and the voters vote for it, then.
Or they could change
Or
it,
they could change
or they
it,
could change
amend
the
it.
language
They
based
could
on
amend
what.
And I get what you're saying about recommend, I'm not asking you to recommend, because you shouldn't. But in this instance, this group is kind of, you're advising the commission, but in this group, this is saying, how do we enhance the citizens' position?
Right, we're representing citizens.
So does that seem like a reasonable, and then
I would.
we'll go and that's our recommendation.
Yeah,
And then
well,
the
that's gonna,
council,
it's
the
the
commission.
way it is with everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So before we start doing something, are we good with 21, 22, 23, and 24?
I also had a bit of a issue with the language in 22, I know it's. It says that affordable housing is a paramount goal, what's not clear to me is, as various projects, development projects and so forth, are brought to the city as they are, the planning board, the shopping center here, new office building, whatever, that, it almost implies that if there's not affordable housing, it is part of it that it somehow isn't fair enough fulfilling this is, because this is our paramount goal. Isn't our goal is, I think, a bit more balanced. I like language
Yeah, I don't
that
like,
says that
are
sort
you
of.
saying the word paramount is
Yeah, I'm
over?
saying that projects, there needs to be a balance between. Just regular projects that might only be affordable by wealthy people. And affordable housing, I'm not sure, I think most projects, if you look at the number of projects that are gonna come before the planning board and so forth, probably 90% of them right now, 100% of them.
Probably not.
And maybe where we're trying to get to is to say, well, maybe 10% of these would be good if they were affordable housing. But this is sort of like, I would interpret this as almost saying, oh, 90% of these projects should be.
Well, look, this is aspirational, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the word paramount maybe there's a synonym for that is less.
I think that there needs to
It's
be.
less aspirational.
I-
Yeah,
I-
I mean, it could be, an important goal, it's.
I would say that we acknowledge that there needs to be a balance. Between, an an affordability of housing, or that there needs to be. A diversity of housing needs to be available at different affordability levels.
You can't make that happen though. You can't.
The market
This is only a
The market-
This is the market's gonna determine that.
Thank you.
We did that, we removed that from the last,
We
from
can't-
the
we
sale of
can't-
land.
we can't do that.
The one that was-
Yeah, but you can turn down projects.
That was really.
You can have the first right of refusal, or you can have the first right of offer, but the chances of that,
That's wrong. What do you?
I don't think.
What would you, if you have a?
Yeah, I don't like this
There's
paramount.
no. Well, I got that, so it could be important, it could be some other. There's no
Well,
other
it-
reference.
it's
Probably important
You
goal
have to say.
that,
Significant
An
goal?
imperative
With
goal.
regard to city
it's not
property.
imperative.
I mean,
It's
Significant,
Find another word.
It is,
Mhm.
You can just leave it as a goal. You
yeah,
don't have to.
Yes.
yeah, it's goal.
Exactly.
It's a goal.
The goal of the city.
And determinate, and not necessarily. a key
Rick was
term,
pointed out
Oh,
in this thing.
But is a goal of the city and a
Maybe I'll
determinate.
I-
and
I
individual
agree with my
interest.
create your-
Let's see. Affordable
I
housing.
think it would say actions with regard to city property. Is probably what you need to have.
affordable is
What number?
a goal of the city and a key
No.
factor
Any property.
Yeah.
of individual and community.
A key
health.
factor
Well, it's not exclusive to city
in
property.
individual and
Okay.
community health.
Well, then there still needs to be a reference to property somewhere. Yes.
So here,
Yeah, this, this
has
doesn't,
been created.
Yeah,
with the
that's often just a little bit,
Maybe
but
just take out the word above.
the paramount was really what hit me first.
Specific-
so Nick, we're gonna
Strike
strike the word paramount.
Okay.
Well,
So the. A
Ron,
for that
what is the issue
and-
specifically? George, do you have a solution?
I think we're writing it right
Yeah,
now.
we got
Houses
We're deleting
is
a word.
an. Or no, a goal
Okay.
of the city and a key factor in individual and community health and well-being.
Okay,
That has softened it, it doesn't dictate or change the.
Okay.
And a
action.
key factor of individual and community.
because I had
blah, blah,
also
blah.
had I had also
You
had
had it in the
language
sale,
from the
but we took
affordable
that out.
housing language that we struck in 103. That is consistent with the scale and maybe we want to put, and historic, in other words, we support affordable housing, but it has to be consistent with the character of neighborhoods, with historic districts. In other words, we're not gonna put a 20-story
Well,
affordable
that's
housing
what I
building
was-
in a
that
historic
was the
neighborhood.
direction I was looking at.
I think we can,
I like what you're saying. I just think we ought to make it clear that it's not every project
Blanket.
everywhere.
Raul,
Yes.
here's, I think this last phrase here, while protecting the ability of the property to appreciate and value, if you substituted that. For some of the stuff about being consistent with the neighborhood.
I can,
Okay,
I can show
Yeah,
you.
I don't like that appreciate
And
value.
there.
okay,
Easy.
so, but do you want us to report, well, you know what?
Let me
We'll,
find it.
we'll insert it and then we'll include it in the report, and when you see it next month, then you can give final approval.
Yeah.
Cause I think I had that language.
You
in
did, we
103.
took it at the.
That was
took it out.
pretty good.
Yeah.
And we took it
yeah,
out 'cause
take
we
it
said
from
it was
there.
here.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Right.
And
Okay.
So now that it's here, let's make sure
Yeah.
it kind of reflects it a little bit.
That works for me.
So
Works for the committee.
can we,
But
You know,
remember,
Right.
this is what Miguel would just first the housing authority.
Beach.
right, heard and what no unreasonable postponements, I feel like it's.
Rita Jean.
It's still what we have in there now.
Oh, yeah, and the, on the extra sheet here.
On the first ballot question,
Yeah.
I feel like we're kind of we're still in the same place. What is an unreasonable postponement? What is a notice and to be heard on city matters, amendments, all of that? Because we've been cut off at some public hearings. I mean, we need to, I'm trying to get us to a place where people feel like they're being heard and that they're not. I don't know how to get there. And I don't wanna pick this to pieces because we're so close, but I do
Yeah.
feel like we need to make a little bit of a tweak.
Does this?
May I
this stay
just-
here?
Yes,
May I say something for the record, George?
Sure.
With the language you talked about. So where we're talking, I'm just gonna read, and Elizabeth, you tell me if you need more. In furtherance of the policy, the city's Affordable Housing Committee has been created to review, establish policies and procedures, ordinances, land development regulations, and adopt a comprehensive plan of the city, and to recommend to the city commission specific actions or initiatives to encourage or facilitate affordable housing. And then this would be my new language, members, that is appropriate and consistent with the scale and character of the city's historic districts and
I
neighborhoods.
like that.
Does that work?
Yes,
Okay.
Bravo.
yes. I like that.
So for the 22 affordable housing, that would follow the first sentence after well-being, then we insert roles language.
It would go after
Okay.
facilitate affordable housing.
At the end, right at the very end.
Oh, so it's all of this? I thought you did it after well-being.
It's here.
No, no.
Right at the end.
Okay.
That's
It's
great.
down
All the
here.
way to here, we go to here, we just delete,
Facilitate affordable housing
and then
here.
we insert roles.
And you
Right,
deleted
yeah.
the word
Okay.
you deleted the word paramount and you added.
We delete
Yeah.
paramount, we delete determinant, and we go all the way down the second to last line after facilitate affordable housing,
Yes,
and then we insert roles language.
yes.
Does that help, Ron?
Yes, it helps a lot.
And it's
Okay.
lovely.
Well
done.
So,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
right,
you
that's-
need to
that's
strike
how
while
feels right.
protecting the ability of the property,
Yes.
you need to strike that.
yeah,
Strike that.
Okay.
All
right, yes,
Well,
yes, sir, correct.
Up above that, it has here, what tries to explain number 7, no unreasonable postponement, but
Okay,
It's still
so
not do enough.
this
not,
This page that you all are looking at right now,
Yep.
Elizabeth, is an outline of the issues addressed in the Bill of Rights, but it isn't the full text. Now, we have a working draft of the text that will include as part of the final
Okay.
report. And as to no unreasonable postponements, what we have right now, this is based on the board's discussion earlier this year, might have even been last year,
Okay,
is that any commission agenda item that has been deferred
perfect.
by the city commission member who sponsored the item. The item has not been heard within 3 regularly scheduled city commission meetings. Shall be automatically withdrawn, and no item based on the same proposal may be placed on another agenda. In the following 3 regularly scheduled commission meetings,
Consistent.
unless the requirement is waived on a 6/7 vote.
can we do, here's what I'm looking at. This is what people are gonna be reading. This is not clear to me, and this again is what we've historically seen in the city is that these questions don't read. In a way that people are even,
Yeah,
we
I have
can
a
understand
suggestion.
it.
I have a suggestion.
Well, they will see, by the way, they will see the full text. This outline is for the board's discussion purposes.
But this is the
Yeah,
question.
but I have a
Yeah, this is-
clarification. I think what might read better, instead expanding through this public record. And then instead of saying no unreasonable component, but imposing or limiting postponements, imposing limitations on postponements, or in some way limiting postponements.
We've got,
As opposed
so
to
we
That's
go,
the-
we-
Instead of no unreasonable, because unreasonable is,
that's
it's not
not,
a
I
defined
just
term.
hate that word.
but what you, when you read that
I love
language,
it.
what you read was a limit on how many times you can postpone.
Well, that's what we did.
So that's the new
That's what we
language
did.
that is
Yeah,
consistent.
But your
with the board.
section title
Now-
now reads no unreasonable postponement.
That's
why
that's
you're-
existing, so
Yes.
what the Bill of Rights currently says is no unreasonable postponements. No matter once having been placed on a formal agenda by the city shall be postponed to another day. Except for good cause shown in the opinion of the city commission, so that's existing, we're not proposing to take that away. That's what no unreasonable postponements relates to, is that there must be good cause.
And you're now saying, in addition to
In
that,
addition to that, we're setting that 3-month rule. That a commissioner cannot defer their own item for more than 3 months. Unless, and if they do, then it cannot be brought back for another 90 days.
And
Another-
that's what we're saying, those
That's the new-
existing rights are expanded.
We're expanding.
So this is the question, right? This
Yes.
is what I'm
you're gonna.
I'm
in
Joe
the ballot
Voter,
box,
I'm
you're
Joe
gonna say-
Voter, this is what I'm gonna say. This doesn't, okay, my question's, if I'm Joe Voter, which I
Looking at the
am,
question now, yes, yes.
um. So so my notice and be heard on city matters. Increased public hearings and notice requirements. Tell me what that means. That would be my question.
And that's a
Is there
fair- yeah.
something that we
Right.
can put in here that somebody will say, yes, we want this? Because from somebody else's perspective, it may appear that we're, even though it says you're increasing public hearings, but we don't know to what.
And that's a fair point. The challenge with the ballot question, Gene can tell you.
75
The
words.
Bill of Rights is how many issues we're
Yeah.
trying to include. That's the challenge, right?
So
Ye-
that's a
um,
big one though.
it
So
is,
let me ask you,
but
should we
whereas
break this up into three?
I think you need to look, I think you need to step back and think of all the issues that you have that you're proposing. And, you know, when you're
Yeah, you gotta get to
presenting,
a number of this.
when you're presenting ballot questions, you have to state the chief purpose of measure. You do not have to, and the courts recognize that you cannot, because of the 75 word limit, state the detail of implementing every provision. But you certainly cannot, it's referred to as hiding the ball. You cannot not disclose elements that do not otherwise relate to the chief purpose measure. Right now, we feel there is nothing that we have not disclosed, it having stated the chief purpose of the measure. We're explaining that the existing rights are expanded, and we give a few examples of how. To start getting into the detail of each
Yeah.
one of these within 75 words, unfortunately, look, if we didn't have 75 words, we'd love to. But to answer your question, Elizabeth, what do we mean by increased public hearings? It relates back to the board's direction for increased public hearings was the two Stanley Sutniks. There has to be a quorum, right, wait, let me just pull that up.
Yeah, it was Stanley Sutnick, a quorum, and two public comment
That the Stanley
periods.
Sutnick both attended by the quorum of the commission, one held at the commencement of the meeting and one held afternoon, those are details of the increased hearings. And as
Do you
far
have
as.
in there as well, what about the public comment on both first and second reading? Is that part of
No,
that?
that's in 205.
That's a separate.
That's
question.
into a right. And the increased notice deals with the extra language, the expanded rights to notice that you all want to include the city codes 2-17 targeted notice, so that's in there. So, that's what we've done. Again, if we didn't have the 75 word limit, that would be
Yeah,
great.
I think you got a grammatical problem here. This is not hard to read because you begin with a verb, expanding existing rights to public records. And then I would think that since you don't have another verb,
Expanding.
that it applies to expanding no unreasonable postponement and expanding.
How about just expanding the
But it is expanded.
It's a right to no unreasonable postponements.
All of these rights are being expanded.
What he's trying to say, I think, Ron, is that you want, instead of it, he wants expanding each. Before he's saying, or
No,
maybe.
I don't, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I find the sentence. There's
The
something wrong
syntax is
with it.
wrong. The syntax is wrong.
Something is wrong,
No.
expanding existing
I think
rights
that's
to
what-
public records. No
Well,
unreasonable
We don't have to
notice
include
be heard.
no unreasonable postponement.
I think people wanna know that. Remember, we had Sunset Harbor,
Yeah,
so
some
it's
people
big.
want to know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but maybe it's creates more questions than it helps. I mean, it already sounds, if you want people to vote for this, because it's good, expanding existing rights to public records,
How about expanding the following, ...
rights to notice and be.
How about Elizabeth, when she did that?
I mean, that just-
expand the
And
following.
be heard, I don't know,
If
that
you just
doesn't.
put expanding the following, and then
Just delineate.
colon,
by
and just
2,
1,
A,
2,
B,
3,
C.
4, and 5, or dot, A, B, C, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's simple, it reads
Right, you probably don't need to say rights
well,
again, because the title is Citizens Bill of Rights. Shall the Citizens
Well,
Bill of Rights
The
expand?
the title has to summarize the substance of the measure, so we can't get away with like putting stuff in the title and then not,
Mhm.
they have to be consistent, but I think would be helpful for us, so we don't draft on the fly, it's if there's specific, you know, if there's specific comments you'd like us to try to incorporate.
Bullet points as opposed to, or numbers as opposed to having it read like a sentence.
Yes, you know, the challenge is just look at the number of issues that we're.
What if
trying
you
to
just
reflect
did-
on the question.
What if,
The right to.
and I don't know that this is possible.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just, what if you said, expanding existing rights to, or, you know, something, and then, you know, city banners, and then underneath that, amendments including increased hearings, and then semicolon,
Increase.
you know,
Maybe help
notice,
you-
yeah.
maybe free up the pressure a little bit.
Saying that.
Yeah.
Could we take bullet number 3? Which is.
I'm sorry, Gene, go ahead.
Yeah, the remedy, and include it in the remedy question below. Some way. So now you've got, the first question is expanding rights, and the second question is remedies. And that gives you, I don't know how many more words.
A lot. It's just, it's more
Make
simple and
it
it's.
more of what Ron and Elizabeth.
Yeah, the language is just tortured because it notice and be heard. I mean, it says expanding rights.
I still wanna move the remedy to the remedy question.
Yeah,
It's just-
That's our bullet.
So then maybe you
Or
can
bullet.
clear, maybe make that sentence a little clearer, that first.
Bullet, make it bullet points or numbered, like.
I don't know, I don't even wanna have bullet points and on top of bullet points.
No, but what Michael was saying,
You could,
number it.
you could put 1, 2, 3 or something.
Okay,
A, B, C.
Like I said.
okay.
Right.
Gene, are we following this?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think-
so the bottom line is that we want to put all of the penalties, the third bullet
Together.
point in the second bullet, in the second ballot, so it's all just about penalties. Um,
So move.
which, you know, can I just do a quick count? Excuse me for 1 second.
She's gonna reach 50 really fast.
That's one question is expanding rights, and another question that is.
Yeah, oh, I like that, I like
It's
that.
just,
I think that's
If
clear.
one passes, then it passes, and if the other one doesn't, then they don't.
Right.
it's just more simple. I mean, I just think when people start reading these things, they get bogged down in the details and they can't. You know, it's just like, they've read so much, it's like, no. As opposed to,
Well,
this is a really
yeah,
good.
usually the principal position is no, so.
Yeah.
Don't have any reason to,
And then assume, so let's say we can, while Gene is counting, incorporate the third bullet into the penalty question. What are the points that you, it sounds like you'd like more detail on
so.
the
yeah.
no unreasonable postponements?
And being, and be heard. Being heard, right to be heard.
So you want us to take each of these existing rights and give like an example for each
No,
existing rights?
no, just
More detail?
just outline them underneath each other with like maybe
Instead
a
of
dash
all-
or X what number of, you know,
Don't make it all like a run-on sentence, it's
Yes.
just kind of let them stand on their own,
yes.
you don't have to explain them,
Expanding the following existing rights.
something like that.
Boom, 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 boom,
Exactly,
boom.
you got it. Janine.
Creating the
Bullet
following new
points
right.
for each of the.
Right.
And just
Yeah,
do
yeah,
one,
that
would be
2,
better.
3,
How many,
4.
like, how physically long? No,
Yeah.
as long as it's 75 words.
As long as something that words
Right.
could be, you know,
Right.
like an outline, you know.
Right, but then again, you know, visually, you
Pretty
don't
long.
want it to
There's
be
no-
cluttered.
No, but
It-
this
it-
is more cluttered.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
So are you saying expanding existing rights
And then
to
list.
colon,
Right,
and then, you know,
Another
1,
box.
2,
Correct.
3,
Okay.
okay.
It's just.
So wait,
simple,
do you want
clear.
us
same
to
with bullet.
Yeah,
two,
in
is
other
it
words,
bullet point or word?
expanding, yeah,
No.
like expanding existing, these
Rights.
existing rights or something, you know, and then
Bullet
list
point.
them all.
You can, yeah, it could be bullet
Yes.
points or numbers or letters or
Well,
row
numbers,
or.
letters and more
I
words.
think.
Oh, they
Yeah.
do, right, they're bullets.
Yeah,
Are you serious?
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, then do that, so then you don't need a bullet for expanding existing rights, start that, and then your first bullet is. Rights to public record, second bullet, no unreasonable postponement, third, notice to be heard. Fourth, amend, whatever. you know,
Exactly,
And
just make it simple.
then maybe do the same
Yeah.
thing with bullet number 2, creating new rights.
So you want no unreasonable performance noticed and be heard on city matters, amendments, increased public hearings and notice requirements, you want those listed as bullets?
Yeah.
Okay,
And I think-
beneath the bullet.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's gonna
I know-
actually
I
make
know
it
what you're
look
saying.
more like I wanna vote for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, just for consistency, you may wanna do the same thing with bullet number 2.
I agree.
Create new rights,
Okay,
historic preservation,
Jane.
affordable housing.
okay.
Jane,
Yes,
can we do the same thing for bullet point number 2?
yes.
And the same for, I
So
just,
that-
Well, the
and then we're
third
gonna
is
have the
moving,
remedies.
the
and-
third bullet
Okay.
point is moving to the second ballot question. Which will need to be abbreviated a little bit because we're at 76 words.
It's okay.
But-
wait,
but-
the second,
You know, we'll get there.
yeah, the second, no, I think it's the sense of this the committee, unless I'm feeling otherwise, that. We're interested in allowing for the plaintiffs. Attorney's fees. But not the,
City unless there's
unless it's.
demonstration of
Well,
good faith or.
Yes, but I want to clarify something to you. You know, it is not necessarily that the city will be the defendant. These
I
Bill of
just
Rights,
said that.
well, I didn't hear you, I'm
But
sorry.
no, I just said it to Ron.
Oh. Because the Bill of Rights are applicable to officers individually and employees individually and the entity individually. So whatever you are deciding now for the successful defendant will apply and, you know, as well to an individual defendant.
But not defendant, the plaintiff, no?
The attorney's fees award, you're saying you want absolutely the successful plaintiff to get attorney's fees.
Correct.
But then there was a discussion about why the defendant, the successful defendant, should not get attorney's fees because you were talking about city's great resources.
Right.
But the defendant is not necessarily the entity.
but-
It could be the individual as well.
If it's an individual
But
employee,
the city could cover.
aren't they
Not
identified?
necessarily. You know, there are, George just asked, would the city pay for those fees? And I think we briefly in the past discussed that. Then you get into issues of whether or not the defendant is entitled to the city assuming the cost of attorney's fees, and that is not a given.
Who decides that, the city attorney or the
Statute.
commission?
Well,
If the
statute,
city wishes to cover an employee, is that a determination of the city or of the statute?
well, I don't know about employees, but I know about officers. What about,
No, go ahead.
I don't know about employees, but I would imagine it's the same.
No, no,
But I know for
if- if
officers,
a
there is
citizen-
there is a state statute that references when actions are taken and the city's responsibility. There's a couple of legal analyses that we go by. And then there is also common law that talks about if a action is taken within the course and scope of your employment or office, then you may be entitled to attorney's fees. The whole idea is not to chill your actions when you're acting as a governmental
Well,
agent.
it would seem that if they were acting in their normal due course and under the direction of their boss, that the city would cover them. If they acted independently and rogue, and the city chooses not to, well, maybe that's why we
Right.
want this.
And, well, particularly in a case where they won. So, you know, if an employee or commissioner or whatever is sued by somebody, then, and it turns out that they won the case, then it seems to me that that would be where you should be, your indemnity should take into effect. It's a little bit like, if you have D&O insurance, right?
Right.
If you know, they pay your legal fees, you know, to defend, but if it turns out you've done
But
something
it's
wrong,
okay.
then you're,
Shame on you.
Well,
you're stuck.
You know, I don't mean to argue, but I just
Yeah.
factually,
Yes.
I'll put it in perspective. Right role as city attorney, former city attorney will tell you, the city still pays for that indemnification. The city's resources are still paying for those attorney's fees to be paid by that policy that the city has.
Right.
Right, Rowie? In other words, you
Yeah.
know,
No,
to say the
that's
city has
that's what I'm
big
saying.
pocket, deep pocket
No, no,
is,
Well, but that's what I'm saying is that the city, that the person, if they prevail, is going to be reimbursed for the city, so they have the financial resources of the city behind them. Whereas the person bringing the case has only their own pocketbook.
but it's still, again, I'm not arguing, just saying,
No,
right,
I
Rowie.
disagree.
It's still the taxpayers that are
They're
paying.
still, right,
the
we still
city
take a
to-
budgetary hit,
Yeah.
one way or the other.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what you're saying, what you're trying to say is that, you know, a lawsuit against the city, you know, could be viewed as a lawsuit against hypothetically a deep pocket defendant who has all the resources, even though that's not technically correct. I think you're talking about perception. Okay,
All right, but I think that's the sentiment.
can I just say something? Are we past is number one okay, save for the bullets?
First question, yeah,
Okay, so first question, you just want to divide it into bullets, but the language is fine.
and we're only dealing with the first two, the
Oh, yeah.
expanding
Yeah.
and the creating. new
Yes, sir.
rights. Bullet three, we're moving to the low.
Okay,
But it-
all right, so guys,
And then,
Yeah.
we're good
so
with the first question.
so number one, you got-
Reframing it.
number two, question two, then, I'm gonna, suggest that we do the prevailing party for the citizen side, not the resident side, or the city side.
Correct. With the proviso frivolous and bad.
Yeah,
faith.
it's same
Right.
concept as what the state is.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
And we also provide in here, right now, just by way of background, the Bill of Rights, all of the Bill of Rights, City of Miami Beach's Bill of Rights, Dade County Bill of Rights, all the other municipal Bill of Rights in Dade County that we've looked at, they all provide that the successful party gets costs. Again, none of them provide for attorney's fees. This proposal suggests that to expressly say that everybody gets costs, not the successful plaintiff, but just so that you know, and I know Mike knows this, that when you go to court, the successful party is entitled to get costs, whether it's in here or not. Attorney's fees, no, but all successful parties are entitled to costs under the rules of the courts and Florida statutes. So this ballot question also has a provision where we delete at least the language in the Bill of Rights that limits costs just to the successful plaintiff, basically saying that whoever is a successful party gets costs.
so plaintiff, so just to be clear, that was very good, but it's.
What,
And
just
so,
what
so,
you
so
want
if the
to
resident files suit for some violation other than a public record, well, no, it's gonna, now
No.
we're gonna say it's all.
Right,
We're gonna say, but let's just say it's a right to be heard thing. And they are successful. They get their cost and attorney's fees. If they are not successful, they're not successful. But it was not frivolous and it was not bad faith. Then they just incur their lawyer's fees and costs, but the city doesn't get any reimbursement. Is that what we're saying? Okay.
Because this is, the other reason why I kind of feel that way, this isn't just any old suit, this is a Bill of Rights suit. This is not, so that's why, it's situations where. This isn't a for-profit kind of a situation where a developer is trying to,
It kind of ensures that the commission.
I
abides by
just
it.
have to say that when you say for profit, several years ago, the city, and I think it was when Raoul was city attorney, right, those predatory public records lawsuits.
Yes,
And for profit, there were bad actors who were filing lawsuits, not just against the city of Miami Beach, but against various governments, municipal, county. And they were doing it because of the fact that, as we've already told you, the state statutes specifically allow for the successful plaintiff to get attorney's fees. So here you had these parties that were making a cottage industry about suing
Yeah.
governments
Yeah.
just to
yes.
get the case settled
Yeah.
under
Well
the
said.
threat of attorney's fees. And there is a great likelihood for that happening again here.
I think what Gene is saying is, and I know, Ron, that, in a perfect world, this is, Davy against Goliath, and your view is that there should be some remedy, but there could be unintended consequences. At the end, quite simply, we, just to advise you completely, we may find ourselves giving a different recommendation
That's fair.
with regard to
I
this
respect
ballot
Yeah.
question than you do.
And that's why it makes sense to separate them.
Oh,
I don't
yes,
wanna
definitely.
throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah.
If the commission decides they don't wanna do that or change it, then they don't put question two on the ballot.
Yeah, that's good.
And we still get the benefit of the
Okay.
expanded rights.
And I think you've heard our concerns in recommending this,
Mhm.
so.
If there's no more discussion on those
Here's
two
the point.
points, I want to raise one additional point with regards to the Bill of Rights, which is non-discrimination. The board discussed at an earlier meeting, amending the Bill of Rights to include hair texture or style, height or weight as additional categories, based on which discrimination would be prohibited. We looked more closely at the Bill of Rights at section 1.07 of the charter. which requires voter approval prior to any amendment to the human rights ordinance, which waters down the human rights ordinance. And we also looked at the human rights ordinance itself, which is in chapter 62 of our code. And the list of protected categories is different in all three places, in the Bill of Rights, in 1.07, and in the human rights ordinance. And the human rights ordinance has 10 more protected categories than are listed in the Citizens Bill of Rights. So I raise this to you because it's, you know, where the board was talking about hair texture, style, height, or weight, it's really, you know, it's going to require, more substantial changes in that you know, if you wanted to make the Bill of Rights consistent, you would need to add these 10 protected categories. So I raise this because for a number of reasons. One is that that there may be labor issues that we would want to look into further if this is something the board wants to explore putting in the Bill of Rights. And also the board should consider that this will likely require an additional question. So I raise it for, for your thoughts. It's,
Nick, is this-
I guess I would say that these categories are all covered by our human rights ordinance, so
Can we make the charter consistent by referencing
Yeah,
the human rights
can they, in
ordinance?
other words, can they reference the city code provision as say may be amended from time to time? Because I get what you're saying, that these protected classes are expanded periodically, so we don't want to put something in the charter that's gonna be outdated. Can we do it that way by referencing the charter, the city code section?
and we do that now in
Or
one,
as referenced in the city's human rights ordinance, as say may be amended from time to time?
and we do it in 1.07. We reference the code where it says any revision to the code, that waters down the human rights.
Yeah.
Act. But then we specifically identify the classification category, so I guess,
Right.
And Nick, this is both in 16, this is both in non-discrimination and non-discrimination in city employment.
that's right. Yeah.
And they're the same protected classes in both?
No, there's one additional protected class in city
Yeah,
employment,
there
which is
was.
gender identity.
There was.
That one is not in paragraph 16, and I honestly
We
don't
should
know.
do it the way Raul
Please.
or Michael suggested.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would
Just
do it that way.
reference
And incorporate the human, okay.
Yeah.
We can look at that.
Otherwise,
It's
you'll always
easier.
be chasing your tail.
Yeah.
As we-
So that's a
From time to
separate
time.
ballot question.
Well, or if we should maybe look and see if we're moving bullet 3 into the penalties, maybe we have room to reference.
I like it.
We may have, let's look at it.
Oh, yeah, not to complicate matters, can I,
Wait, so put the in the first
In
question?
the first question.
I was gonna, I wouldn't feel complete if I didn't suggest this. It's to be accepted. But in the item number 18, ethics in government,
18.
ICMA has it's 100 years now, but ICMA has had its ICMA code of ethics. It gets adopted from time to time to keep up with, the business. Can or should we reference the ICMA code of ethics as part of it as well? I've got copies here, if people want to see it, but ICMA is the community organization for good government and local government management. And I'm just wondering if it would be worthwhile.
So that's another question.
No, I'm not suggesting another question. It's referenced as part of this text here.
Wait, what
I would-
number?
You have ethics
George?
number
Ethics in
18.
government.
I would
Number
want,
18.
But
I
the-
wanna see it, George, I
Yeah.
haven't seen that. I'd love to
Right.
see it because I wanna see where
Mhm.
there's probably, I'm sure there's overlaps with some of what
Wait, George,
is. Go ahead.
George, are you suggesting specifically adding in the ICMA or just saying
By
using
reference.
language in the ICMA?
By reference.
Right, but you're not saying
Oh, it is.
incorporating.
Oh, no.
by
Say
name,
in section number
ICMA.
18, just kind
Right.
of say, whatever that is, if there's a
Well,
way to include the ICMA code
yeah.
of ethics. We talked about, last time about how we select the manager. and
Yep.
Stuff like that. This is the standard for managers, it relates to codes of ethics. All good stuff. I'm not suggesting we incorporate the entirety and try to write it in here.
But do you want the guidelines incorporated by reference? Is that what you're
That's what I'm
suggesting?
Suggesting in number 18, if it can be done.
Wait, but you're not saying by name,
Yes.
incorporating ICMA.
Yes.
Well, I think the concern with that would be city employees and government. City officials and employees are governed by 3 ethics codes. I'm not talking about the manager because we understand the manager is governed by the ICMA. City employees and officers are governed by the state ethics code and by the county ethics code and by, in Miami Beach, the city of Miami Beach's ethics code. They are not bound by this. Now, again, we understand you, George, your professional capacity as manager, maybe also because the same way the attorneys are bound by the Florida ethics
Right,
code.
it goes to the last phrase, George, where it says, all city officials and employees shall abide by applicable codes of ethical conduct and be subject to all penalties provided for in such regulations.
Mhm.
So does as far as I know, though, the ICMA code of ethics, those
Only
are,
applies to ICMA.
right, but they're voluntary, no, there are no penalties.
Well, there's public censures and expel, you can be expelled from the membership, it's like the Florida bar can take away your license, I suppose. And so ICMA can expel you and do a public censure or private censure, or suspend your membership or your credential manager status. Those things,
Well-
but those are a process that ICMA goes only to ICMA members. They're just, look, I'm bringing it up only because we talked last time about establishing some criteria, some,
Right.
some
Formula aspiration.
I don't wanna create a problem.
Oh,
They
you're
get
worried that
lost.
there may be a conflict?
Especially the penalties.
Well, that's-
George, this is also as an alternative, and I'm just, we could also do this as a possible amendment to the city code. Because the city code right now has standards of conduct
That's a
for
good
city
idea.
employees. So it might be more appropriate to do this as an amendment to the code.
I like it.
If there are, that's a good idea, right? If there are provisions of the code that do not conflict with this. And that's a policy decision for the
That's fine.
city commission.
And that's something you
To
can
make-
include in your
recommendations.
recommendations.
I like
Right.
that a lot.
Can we add that there? ICMA's
recommendation.
standards of conduct to be done by amendment to the city code.
Yeah, and then
Well,
we
it'll be a
can,
recommendation.
Right, it's a
that-
recommendation by the
that
committee.
city
Yeah, that's
commission-
simply a recommendation.
we can include that in the report, bro. In the
That's a good
report.
suggestion.
Okay,
Okay. Have we nailed this one?
Land,
any other? So we're good with the ballot questions as amended?
So the decision on the forfeiture, I assume, is that the board wishes to retain the forfeiture of officer employment and adding, subject to which we are explaining is required by state law regardless, it is subject to collective bargaining.
So the genesis of this one is not really coming from here, it's that the county made a change. And so now we're different than what the county does
On forfeiture, yes.
on the forfeiture of office, and I guess, again, go back to my first question, which is if there were a violation of some sort of the county ones, then we would have to apply that standard. And if it's a violation of the city ones, it would be a different standard, or like, if we didn't do that, we didn't say that, just leave it the way it is. What?
The argument that the city could have is that well, again, I hope you will understand that what we're saying, on the record, we're not here to make record for somebody looking to challenge the city, so maybe that's best left for private discussion. But we've already.
Executive session?
But we've explained to you that there are concerns that we have with regards to a partial conflict, and that's why we have accept as otherwise provided by law. And
What's the feeling? What do you guys?
Um,
It's good enough for the county, it's good enough for us?
yeah, that's what-
Was it I would suggest that-
I wouldn't buy that.
yeah, that's the least troublesome path.
I don't think we have a choice anymore.
Yeah.
so the board is voting to delete the forfeiture of officer employment.
Yeah, they take bullet 3 and incorporate it into the question 2. and try to
Yes,
conform
but
it
it's,
with. conform it with
but
what the
you're
county
talking about, if I understood what you just said, deleting the forfeiture as a penalty,
did. Yeah.
consistent with the
Consistent with the
county.
What the county did.
Okay.
What the county.
Oh, hang on, let me just confirm for a second. The county position is for a violation of the county charter.
The county
there is
bill of
no
rights,
provision
county
to
bill of rights.
County Bill of Rights. There's no provision for the employee or the office holder to forfeit their position, correct?
correct. The
Okay.
voters approved that in,
And then the voters did whatever they wanted to. The
So there's no
question,
provision for removal?
I think we need to keep
not in the
that.
county bill of rights, that was.
I don't know that I would do that.
oh, right, because I thought in our original discussion many moons ago, we wanted to include specifically
We do.
that if there is a violation, they could forfeit their position.
That was, I remember that. That was
That's-
specific.
That's what the forfeiture section says, the forfeiture section that's in as a penalty. That used to be in the county's Bill of Rights says, if there is a willful violation. Then a remedy, one of the remedies is forfeiture of office or employment. And the county deleted that.
Right.
It's my understanding because it could be considered draconian. But they provided in that same ballot question that the county ethics commission would have jurisdiction to provide the public and the citizens with an extra enforcement measure.
But the ethics commission can't remove them from office.
Correct.
The ethics commission
I'd like to leave it the way.
only
Well,
has
yeah, that-
power over the penalties.
And forfeiture to me means voluntary, not voluntary, but I do it versus being removed, someone forces me out. Does forfeiture mean like?
Forfeiture means you lose your office
That's-
or employment, you may.
Who would decide that?
The court.
Well, the courts
The
would,
court-
right now, the most recent relevant news
Yeah.
item that's happened is with not commenting on the validity of it, but just saying we had read in the Herald reported that in the city of Miami with Commissioner Carroyo's recent
Right.
litigation that's going on, the plaintiff who succeeded in getting the money judgment is also moving pursuant to the city of Miami's Bill of Rights, removal of Commissioner Carroyo under this forfeiture provision. And that is a decision that the courts will decide.
But that's one example, there, there is an example of a city employee, including, for instance, a code enforcement officer. Where a plaintiff sought the forfeiture of that code officer's position. Really for conduct that was completely within the scope of the code officers.
No, that-
duties.
The court will decide it. Right, that.
Right, but it is it's.
It's a threat.
It's a very heavy penalty.
Yeah.
I'm
Very.
inclined to can we leave it the way it is without addressing? And it just
I
stays
don't-
with the current existing language?
Well, again, if you do leave it in, we've explained to the legal concerns, but at the very least, we have pointed out that pursuant to state law collective bargaining rights,
Right,
that
okay,
needs to be
we'll fix that.
included. But
I'll fix that.
No, I think we made an affirmative decision for.
Right.
I think we ought to leave it in.
I mean, as long as it's some process that leads to that, I mean, that is the
Up to and
maximum.
including, you know.
Yeah,
it's-
yeah,
it's-
yeah, I mean,
no,
as long as,
Maybe you should.
as
Yeah,
long as it's.
no, I mean,
worded in
that's a great
such
point.
What-
I'm sorry, pardon me. But again, under the discussion that you just had with these, the officer or the employee, and this could be any employee, low-level employee, or actually it doesn't even matter if
It could
it's
be
the
a commissioner.
highest officer
It
or
could be
the
a
lowest,
commissioner, it could be the mayor. It could
be anybody, but if they succeed, they do not get fees. And that individual will have paid, that individual could have paid out of his or her pocket fees.
Yeah, but I would hope that the court would say, this is frivolous, this was filed in bad faith, you're entitled to fees.
Mike, you know, the lawyers in this room know how difficult it is to prove frivolous. When you go to court and you try to evidence that a case is frivolous, it's a very high, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be otherwise, but it is a very difficult standard to meet to get fees for frivolous, very difficult.
So what is your suggestion?
Look, I think we're kind of at a consensus here. I know you guys recommend to the commission not to approve this question. It's maybe the answer, but
Yeah. I
we're
mean,
at the
we-
place where we
trying to
want
balance
fees.
it, because either
It's
one,
the Citizens Bill of Rights.
yeah, either the citizen is gonna be chilled. And perhaps in
The
writing,
employee is.
or the employee is going to have an issue, which the city would, if they ended up prevailing, the city would have to reimburse them for anyway, right?
I'll try and-
Yeah.
You know,
You
with
know,
the
one
board,
of the issues though, I think, is sometimes the city attorney's office will give very good advice to the commission or an individual commissioner. The commissioner will shrug and say, screw you, I'm gonna do whatever I want. And then it gets litigated, the city loses, and that person, you know, who's gone through all this and the city didn't take a reasonable position, ought to be entitled to collect fees. So I don't see, in my mind, the ill you're suggesting here is almost always present, but you know, as Ron points out, this is designed for citizens to vouch for their rights.
Correct.
And you know, I think that's the consensus here. And the city attorney may take a position, this could cost you guys money, and the commission can make a decision, ooh, don't want to take a chance on losing money, so we're not gonna put it in there. That's their prerogative.
That's their fault. Okay, so I think question 2 is the penalties without this bullet, actually.
Yeah, well, getting back to the
And it's subject to
forfeiture,
the,
yeah, the forfeiture and job, as long, is the language clear that? Is the language clear that is the maximum penalty, but that is not the required penalty?
No,
Yeah, so that, as was said, that the judge or somebody, that there needs to be a process whereby somebody determines what should the
the death
penalty
penalty. of-
be up to and including forfeiture and whatever, but that is, but we don't want it to be read in such a way that the court would find that you lost the case, therefore you must lose your job.
It's
the
discretionary.
remedy,
it's discretionary.
the remedy says, any public official or employee was found by the court to have willfully, and willful, you know, is a standard to be determined by the court,
Right.
violated this Bill of Rights, shall forthwith forfeit his office or
That's
employment.
too draconian. I
Let
do
her
agree.
finish, let her finish.
Go ahead.
Well, that's
that's
it, that's
Yeah,
it with
so-
regards to,
So I
So you
do
want to
agree
change
that's
shall
draconian,
to may,
may,
That could be it.
you know, and leave it to the.
but then
courts.
we need, no, I mean, excuse me.
Yeah.
Then you need to have criteria by which the court will evaluate whether it shall be may or shall, because the courts need criteria.
Okay, so could it,
Right.
instead of shall receive a penalty up to and including forfeiture? Something like that. Don't we have that in some of our, we have that in our labor personnel standards.
Struggle to.
Look,
Yeah.
Should we discipline up to and including? Is what you're saying is,
Yeah.
it's not a death penalty.
Yeah,
and
I
that-
agree
that's
with
what
you.
courts do anyway. I mean, every law that we have in the books, criminal, whatever, you know,
When's the last
says
time
up
somebody
to,
was
you
removed
know,
from
the
this law?
maximum is 20 years in prison. And then it's up to the judge to decide what he thinks is.
Yeah, but there are guidelines.
There are
for
guidelines
judges
for-
In terms of what the prison sentence should be for specific crimes.
You know,
I tend to agree with Gene that leaving it so open-ended is not appropriate.
What about leaving it to the
Shall-
discretion of the based on a recommendation from the ethics committee?
I don't like that.
No, I don't like
that.
Shall be subject to disciplinary action up to and including
forfeiture of the.
But
Well, it's the
disciplinary
same
action
thing.
is,
But
is
that's
what the employer would decide, not so much, like a court doesn't usually decide what the disciplinary action is, it's the employer.
The judge would.
No, I'm saying that I've never seen that a judge decides what is the appropriate disciplinary action. A judge could
In
decide
the office,
that
right?
disciplinary action was discriminatory because of the way that it was handled. But a judge isn't going to come in and say, you should suspend this employee or you should terminate this employee. That's handled by the employer.
So, you know, in the, first of all, the real world, I don't know, at least in Miami Beach, we've never run across a situation like this that I've.
It's been great.
Well, there've been lawsuits, yeah, not
And-
many, but
And so now. If. We use if the mayor. In the conduct of running in the meeting. Failed to properly deal with the right to be heard.
Yeah.
To Sunday hours at a certain hour
Yeah.
or whatever. And a plaintiff came and filed against that. In the far extreme, I guess he'd be subject to forfeiture
yes, yes.
and nothing in between.
Not the way that it's written up.
If it was,
It's
yeah.
draconian.
Okay, that's, okay,
And
that's
that's-
probably.
that is
the reason
why-
Why the county. did
That
what
is
they did.
why,
Right.
and that is also why other cities have also
Right, so-
deleted it.
Somewhere in
It's just,
between.
you know, quite frankly, it's not just the factors for the court, but it's also for the employee or for the officer. It establishes a standard that can subject them to unlimited forfeiture, threat of
That-
forfeiture, and
That's reasonable. I get.
and by the way, I just wanna
And then
throw in
you're
one
out
other
of the
thing.
job
Whenever
force
you
for
look at
life.
case law that talks about these types of penalties for elected officials, the courts refer to the analysis that these are decisions best left at the ballot. You know, if you don't like what the elected official did, you vote him out of office. And as far as the employee situation, there are personnel rules that govern. I mean, I'm not advocating, but just so that you all.
There's only so much you can
Understand,
have
right.
control over.
Right, but so we can't.
In
just
lieu
be-
of having this
Okay,
draconian.
Right.
so instead of, so it's, this is not binary. It's not yes or no. There's a place in between.
Up to and including
Yeah.
forfeiture from
But that's the
office.
same.
But Rick just said,
Yeah.
but like
That's
Rick
what-
just said,
There's no
That's the same what we
judgment.
said.
they're not gonna
It
tell
has no
you in
standard.
your own in your own office, they're not gonna come into your office and go, hey, guess what? You've gotta fire this person.
No, if it's a
But it sounds
lower
like
level
if we
employee,
remove that.
That's up to,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, if it's a lower level
Personnel
employee,
rules.
then the supervisor could.
so
could
delineate
impose that.
between the two.
No, no,
But
yes,
for
but that-
director, like who
Bifurcate.
decides the mayor
situation,
situation?
if a code officer is rogue enough. That they do something that violates 3 or 4 or one of these things.
But I think that would happen regardless of whether it's in the code.
Right,
in
their
the-
boss would supervise them
the Bill of
hopefully and
Rights.
say, hey, either rein you in or suspend you progressively up to termination. Those things exist for most employees.
Right.
Except for maybe the charters. And then you've got the electeds. And we don't wanna have, not to say
We're-
that
we're
any one
back
of
to
them
the
would, but if
problem.
they just said, hey, I'm gonna discriminate against everybody.
Yeah.
It can happen, you got,
I guess.
it's the political
But
will.
you know
I'd
what,
be
I
okay
think,
in
I,
removing it, all right, I understand the reason for removing it. Is there something else that we can put in that at least gives them, as something?
well, I think the attorney's fees is a very substantial something that is being provided here. Considering that on the flip side of the coin, the city, even faced with the potential for predatory cases.
Okay, but
Uh,
different-
That's not his question, his question is.
Do we-
No, I understand.
No,
I
I
do,
think
but
9 out of 10 cases, that won't be the case. So, I mean, I lean in favor of the resident, but so I don't wanna create a situation where it's so draconian that on the other side, that the citizen is afraid to bring suit. If
Your
they've got a
question
legitimate
was-
case. But my question is,
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
there some other penalty that we can, language we can put in there so that it isn't completely rich?
Can't do this.
Can we say,
From repeating from the same behavior.
well,
Can you, someone said delegate the determination of penalty to the code of, Ethics Commission?
No, but they would need standards too.
I also don't think.
They would
We-
need
we want
standards,
the
otherwise
ethics
it's
commission
unbridled
to
discretion.
decide
They're not
any
gonna
employees
hear that
decide.
anyway, I don't
You
think.
know, my fear, I guess, is you have a mayor at Sutnick Hour, doesn't like a citizen,
Right.
Right,
and citizen shows up. I want my
3 minutes.
3 minutes. The mayor says, turns off the microphone, next.
Right.
And the guy comes back next week. I want my 3 minutes, next. And, you know, consistently, for whatever silly reason, or,
Right.
you know,
Or
good
legit
reason, you know. Shouldn't there be a mechanism where, a charter violation, you know, mayor, you've done this 3 times, can't do this. And the mayor shrugs and say, I'll do whatever I want to do. Well, there ought to be a provision in there to, you know, excise, no, and you don't wait for the 2 years for the ballot.
A repeat offender so that you do it like what you just said, maybe 3 times and then it's forfeiture. But up to that, you get.
And remember, it's only if somebody complains, right?
3 strikes and you're out.
It's only if
Somebody
somebody
has to file a
brings,
case.
files a case.
Right.
Right.
So it would already likely need to rise to a pretty significant standard for me to, you know, hire a lawyer and do whatever a citizen would need to do in that
So
regard.
are you suggesting that if somebody brings a case and a court decides, Mayor, you were in the wrong. Then, and if that, if after that, if he does it again, the mayor. Then in that case, he might be subject to court review.
I'm just trying to figure out how to address the concerns
say, yeah.
that you all have.
You know,
In between.
I'm not sure that that's
Yeah.
the perfect solution.
You know, I'm just saying objectively, the concern is,
This is the only
the voters who vote in an elected official,
solution.
they don't necessarily want the person that they elected and removed for fear to let somebody speak at a meeting. I'm not saying that's not a significant issue, but they're all different levels of
Yeah,
penalty,
I-
and as Nick
Oh, wait,
said,
let me ask you a question, it just dawned on me, so. In Michael's example. I'm the resident who's been shut down 3, 4, however many times I tolerate it, and I finally say, you know what, enough is enough. I hire my attorney, I file suit. I have to go through and be adjudicated, don't I? It's not just because I filed suit. So somebody, a judge, a panel of my peers, whomever is going to rule that, in fact, yes. My rights were violated pursuant to this. Then the judge would. From the standard, I guess it's been established, which is forfeiture, which has been
the judge would
standard
have to
for.
make a determination,
shall-
then there would have to be a finding by the judge that it was a willful, intentional
Fair.
violation. And then under the way this presently exists, the judge has the right to, and must.
Going back for a minute,
Impose the penalty.
why not injunctive relief?
What do you mean? A party right now can bring a cause of action.
Or injunctive?
Yeah, to enforce it, and there's different ways it could be.
So that would be step one before, a judgment.
Yes,
Force,
you need
force
to
it,
have
what
a,
is, was it,
I'm
not
saying
aware.
as the
Is it like a writ of
remedy,
mandamus kind of thing too?
the-
Can a judge
in other
order
words,
the
there is
mayor
a
to give them?
To
for
go.
violation,
Clear legal right.
which you go to court and have it
Mandamus
done
requires a
enjoined as
clear,
opposed
you have
to.
to show a clear legal
So I
right.
have a right to be heard.
Right.
Well,
I wanted to come to Sudnick
yes,
Hour
but
and I keep getting shutting down.
board is.
So a judge can tell the mayor,
It
Give me
would
my
be a
3
choice.
minutes.
There's
mandamus
plenty
is more like
violation,
you
but
file an
there is-
application
they
and I
want
refuse
more,
to
they want
process it.
fees and they.
Yeah.
they
What
want-
about,
you know,
I'll
we're
just
spending
throw
a
out
lot of
another
time on,
idea.
uh,
What
Just
about
stopping the
$1,000
person.
fine? What about put something in that's not so crazy, you know, it's not loss of job, but it's enough so that somebody isn't gonna wanna,
is it fair
you
to
know, like, this is what they do with like, you know, athletes. And I mean, you got all kinds, a lot of precedents for having a fine of some sort that you have to pay. to
It's
get
like a
reimbursed.
civil penalty.
are we talking about
Yeah,
elected
It's like-
officials, charter officers?
That's why I
and
said
then-
you have to
Everybody.
delineate.
Some elected officials will.
No, but don't
You have to
the
delineate between an employee and an
employees who
elected.
are covered, you're saying you need to speak to the collective bargaining so that the classified
Any
employees.
Affect is
penalty
applied to elected
imposed for-
officials.
an employee, right, would have to be subject to collective bargaining.
Well,
That's
What
a
was
fair
that, Mike?
approach. Can we just
well,
look at-
well, employees are already, you know, you already
They're-
have
they got
remedies
their
for
own
employees.
code,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
there is
your own
no
employment
remedy
issues.
for an elected official. I mean, so other than, you know, $1,000 fine or something. That then there is something that you, but right now they have zero as penalties.
So I'm just suggesting that,
How
cut out
about,
the
yeah, how about you
employee
cut out the employee, yeah.
and just have it,
Forfeiture
apply
of
to
office.
elected
There you go.
officials.
There you go.
But then that's still too draconian because you don't know what the nature, I mean, to eliminate the mayor because, you know, I mean, we can think of of an example
If
that
the mayor
didn't
has
happen.
precluded a citizen 3 times or whatever, I would say, what's
Yeah, but are we gonna be
problem?
that specific 3 times?
Well,
And it's
Again,
gonna
I
be
could
the
just
same
tell you what the
official?
cases say, when these types of political issues come up.
Yeah.
The courts say that these are decisions to be determined at the ballot
That's the
box.
ballot.
Yeah, that's right.
So maybe that is the answer. If you, I'm just suggesting that if there are, in that example where you have a mayor or whoever is preventing, you know, a citizen, their rightful ability to speak before the city commission. And for whatever reason, they're ignored, whatever, if you go to court and you are successful of your proposal, that plaintiff will be able to get attorney's fees. And the decision of what to do about that elected official may be one that's best left at the ballot box.
I'm not ready to go there. Where-
Because
where in the
again, there's a
charter does
whole
this-
continuum
can we
of
get to the forfeiture?
violations that
You
we're
go to
talking
your
about
your
here.
Bill of Rights,
Yeah.
and it's the second to last paragraph, it's capital C.
Oh,
remedy.
capital C.
Capital C.
Just like our own ordinances where first, you know, a noise ordinance, say, okay, it's $500, it's a flat amount. It doesn't like, well, how noisy were you? And yes, you know, it's very simple and.
How about we
Yeah,
do
that's
that?
right.
Let's scale this up. It shall forthwith forfeit his office. Instead of that, shall first face a $1,000 fine, $3,000 fine,
You know.
forfeiture of office, something like that.
Yeah, multiple.
1,
Can-
2,
that's-
3. It's like a graduated scale. You're putting your criteria in place.
So.
Shall pay a $1,000 fine for the first violation. I don't know, $5,000 fine for the
Repeat
second
offender.
violation of the same, and then
There
third time is
are,
forfeiture.
Are the
There are
penalties for
fines
ethics
in the
violations
county ethics
controlled by
code.
the ethics ordinance? The
There we
county
go.
ethics
I'm
ordinance?
The
State
county
only
ethics code has graduated monetary dollar penalties.
But that doesn't have anything
That's
to do
it.
with
I'm
this.
just in C.
No,
That
I
is
know-
not
I
this,
know,
but I thought you were
remember
just-
that this is enforceable one of 2 ways, by the ethics commission
Or by
or
the
by
courts.
filing, by filing
And
suit.
if they
Right.
file
Only
suit,
Here, in any suit.
right,
Only in this one, I'm not stepping on the ethics commission. If they pursue it under letter C here. And any employee who is, official or employee who is found by the court. To have willfully violated this article shall, instead of forthwith, shall. Face a $1,000 fine for the first offense, 5,000
10,
for the second
or-
violation, no, then
Forfeiture.
forfeiture, forthwith forfeit his office after the third violation.
So that would require
4
court
cases.
cases, 3
Of the
fines.
same thing.
well, do we wanna do it of the same thing or 3?
3 of the Bill of Rights.
Three,
I don't know.
3 violations of the
These
charter.
Of the Bill of Rights.
Yeah, the Bill
Of
Rights.
the Bill of, I'm sorry, of the Bill of Rights.
Yes.
It would have to be
We
the
would have-
specific Bill of Rights.
I think we would need to look into that. I don't
Okay.
think there's any Bill of Rights that
There are no Bill of Rights
that
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 are
operates
monetary
like that.
penalties, except that given the fact that the Dade County Ethics Commission has jurisdiction over the Bill of Rights, the County Ethics Commission, if they find a
Well,
violation,
that's why I asked.
can
Let's do
impose their
That's why I asked.
penalties, and they do have monetary penalties.
George, that's an important point. I think the County Ethics Commission has jurisdiction over our municipal Bill of Rights
Mhm.
and violations under the county ethics ordinance carry fines.
Understood.
So
I'm not sure that
But
has to be
this-
that.
but this
But that's-
says
so
forfeit,
this-
this says forfeiture.
So you've got C here that says if you're gonna file a suit. And you told us that you wanna give the judge some criteria. This would be the criteria. Or something, some schedule like this.
So are you proposing to strike forfeiture and then replace that with some sort of civil fine schedule?
Like a 1,
Uh,
2, and 3 are out.
3 is.
The third is forfeiture.
Third is forfeit.
Yeah.
So your first violation of the Bill of Right is 1,000. Then you go off and do something else, whether it's the same thing or something in 1 through
As
25 here.
opposed to it just being
I
adios.
think it's arbitrary.
What do you think, Jean?
I'm concerned that it's arbitrary, these dollar amounts. We're throwing out 1,000, 2,000.
Okay, so
Bring us,
I
we're trying to,
think,
you've asked for a schedule. We're trying to give you the schedule.
no, we haven't asked for a schedule. We're just telling you
Or I'm sorry, you
that-
suggested that a schedule
that,
should be.
that
the-
just having, giving a court the opportunity, if it so chooses to, the courts need standards to, to impose punishment.
can we use the standards that are the
How about we
ethics
use the ethics
commission?
number, 500, 1,000, and
Right.
whatever that is,
Can we
but that,
use those?
it goes to forfeiture after 3. Yeah,
Yeah.
take a look at it.
Right,
I'm not waiting to the
I'm
numbers.
just, I'm concerned about where, where we are on the calendar,
Yeah.
but we can look at it.
I mean, that seems a little bit more less.
Otherwise, I would just.
but the idea of what, the big picture idea of what you're saying, just so we understand you correct, is you're saying that rather than, if there's a willful violation immediately, the
Correct.
forfeited, that if they go to court, if it's like the first violation, it's X amount of dollars, and if it's the second willful violation that the court finds, it's then this dollar amount, and if it's the third time, is 3 the magic number
Yeah.
that you're?
Yeah, correct, sure.
Right, and you say it's arbitrary, I mean, this is under civil code, right? I mean, we already have a flat
Well,
set of.
if we're tied into
Use
the
the ethics
county
number.
ethics
It's the
commission,
county ethics.
right, that I
code.
think at least that has some basis, right,
Just 1, 2,
And I
and
think
then
it's a-
you're out.
under this proposal. Um,
And
Do we know?
can we,
What-
can I make a motion to
Would we
just
let-
strike the whole,
these
the next piece where we were talking about the salary?
only.
Wait, no, we want to bring it.
I'm done with that one.
No.
I thought we're done.
No, all right,
So
so
the ethics commission for the first.
do you need anything else on this?
Second and third.
Third would be forfeiture. What would-
I think we're done with this item.
Okay. So.
Alright. So I don't need a motion here just yet,
Right,
so you guys are
yeah.
gonna. Forfeiture's number 3.
3 strikes, you're up.
Yes.
What do you mean forfeiture's number 3? That's-
To the third.
The third violation.
Right. The
Okay.
dollar amount, the dollar amount.
Okay, can we move to the next item or do you need?
Yes,
anything?
hopefully we can.
This
We're
one should be easy.
Right,
Yes.
right?
3.
Okay,
Dollar bill of rights.
you don't need to see Bill of Rights back, right?
I guess we need this, no? Or.
Well,
Well, our plan is to bring back the draft final report at your next
Okay,
meeting.
well,
and this will be
This in
in the
there.
report.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to talk about something after we do 103. So, but I just want to bring up, we might need before April 16th, which is
Okay,
our
need
next
another
regularly
meeting?
scheduled meeting. I think we might need an extra meeting.
Or we need-
Only because the
After-
election discussion is fairly complex. And I'd like to be able to digest it. And and then we can do the final report on April 16th. I don't want to ruin anybody's timeline, but I think it might be good to do an additional meeting.
Do we have time, you issue your final report, then do we have time before they meet to vote to do one-on-one
Yes,
meetings?
that's the plan.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
we factored
And
all.
not, and
We
not
may need to
the-
have a meeting after the
not-
12th, but I would say, I don't think I can.
For the
Yeah.
majority
Yeah.
of things, for the rest of
Yeah.
it, not just the elections, but for the rest of the
The
thing,
bill.
because. What I'd like to do is, I'd like to devote April 16th to the final report and process following. Okay, so,
What I'm saying is, it may be April 12th and then on April
16.
19th. I don't know that I'm gonna be able to get a meeting before April 12th.
okay,
I will not be here April,
That's
that
again,
first week.
2 weeks.
Well, anyway, April
Okay.
16th, the next meeting is 3 weeks.
Okay.
2
well,
meetings.
April
And we
18th
need
is
that
fine
time
because we
anyway.
also still have Calergis until April 19th.
Yes,
So I think we need an additional meeting, is all
Okay, I
I'm
got
saying,
that.
even if it's reduced.
Get
It's not on that
Get the calendar. Well, that's,
When's our
That-
next meeting?
the 12th, April
I mean,
12th.
Okay.
judging by the way you
Oh, wait,
guys,
I thought our
Hey,
meeting was 16th. I thought it was.
Yeah, it's 16th.
I'm sorry.
Nick, when are you
Nick,
leaving?
you're leaving when?
My last day is the 19th.
The 19th.
Yeah.
He'll come back for that though.
Our
Is
next
there
part
availability
is
the week of the 8th?
Hey, hang on, listen, guys, let's not get on calendar yet. Let's finish our agenda. We'll calendar.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't want to, I didn't want to bring it up prematurely, but,
Oh.
okay, here's my 103 ballot question. Which hopefully you will approve of. Does everybody have it in front of it? In front of them?
Page 27.
We're at 74 words. And I tweaked it since we last met.
That's what you're.
27. It's just like it.
I've met with, I tweaked it since we last met, so you want me to read it or are you guys good reading it yourselves?
We're looking at page 27.
Is that
Yes,
what we're
sir.
looking at, right? So, in bullets, it's. You have to say from 60% majority?
Yeah.
That implies.
I think we do have to disclose that.
Right.
Did we not have air rights in here somewhere?
Air rights is in the text, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you.
Then the only question I have is a hearing of 5/7, it's on this issue. Did we change that?
What?
The committee has to change this 6/7 vote of the commission? Or is
Yes,
that
unless you want to leave it 6/7.
Did we as a committee say that change it? I don't remember. I believe you. I just don't remember the.
I do remember there was something which I just didn't like, then where we changed it from five.
I think the reason for changing it was because we added, before, the approval of management and concession agreements did not require a public hearing. So it was, the way it's in the text right now is, in the current charter, is you have a planning board vote, which is binding, 4/7, and then you have 6/7 city commission vote. And what we've done now is we've made all the planning reviews advisory.
Right.
And we changed this to 5/7, but we added a public hearing. We could go back to 6/7. I don't have a problem with that. That's a policy call.
Yeah.
Not sure I would change it to 5/7 myself, but I'm persuaded.
I would make a change from what it is now. Now it's 6/7.
Yeah,
You want to go back to 6/7?
that's what it is today, yeah.
Yes, that's where it is
I would
today.
say Then we can eliminate the bullet, right?
Right, then
And it simplifies.
all I have to do is adding a public hearing.
I don't see
okay.
a reason to loosen it from what it is.
Management concessions are.
And that change is minor enough that we can take your direction and
Correct.
include it in the final report.
So just add the
If that's the
public
final
hearing.
change.
Yes,
Yeah.
That simplifies.
Then we'll need to change the text.
yeah, it'll change the text. That's no big deal.
Okay, you need a vote on this?
Yes, I need
So a
final
motion is
approval,
amended?
guys.
Who's making that? Elizabeth?
I will move forward.
Second, Ron, all in favor? Aye. Any against? Hearing none, Ralph, unanimous.
Great work, members.
Thank you.
Great work.
Work staff. Okay, so next item is. On this election thing, I suggest we go back to where we were. It seems like Christina has indicated that runoff in December is, for a lot of reasons, not the best idea.
In your packet, ladies and gentlemen, we incorporated the email from the county.
It's on page 30.
So when we last talked, we said we'll have the first election in November, runoff the first week of December, or second week of December. Christina White and consulted. Gave us a lot of reasons why that's not an advisable course of action. And so in here, I think we have what we had tentatively agreed to then, right, which is election in October, runoff in November. Or mayor. No runoff, just an election in November for position. Which is where we were until last meeting.
Right, and the only little, just for the record, there was one additional change that we needed to make to the text. It's completely consistent with your substantive amendments. But keeping in mind that this would not go into effect until the city's general election in 2025. We also needed to address, remember, we did that little tweak for 604. We needed to address the situation where if this is approved November of this year, 2024, there could be an intervening city election, like to fill a vacancy.
For
special
rules
election,
apply, right?
between 24 and 25, so we need to make sure for those elections, none of this would go into effect yet. So on the first paragraph where we had deleted, deleting the commissioner groups. Now we're going to say that that the deletion of the commissioner groups will be commencing 2025, specifically said that.
Don't really love that people have to come out twice every 2 years.
They do already, but
No, they just. Only the
General.
runoff.
they
No,
have
we have
re-elected,
elections
it's done every
2
year.
years.
There's always.
We have elections.
No, but there isn't a runoff. They'll have to come out one date.
Uh-huh.
You come out, you vote for the year,
Yeah.
you're done.
Yeah.
With this, we have now made it such that every 2 years, everybody has to come out twice.
Just like
If there's
now,
a
and just like even
No,
number
no, they
here
don't have to
elections.
come out twice now. They only have to come out twice if there's a
If there's a
runoff.
run.
But I think that's.
This says.
But history has been.
Well, now,
It's always run.
because the general elections now for everybody in November and 2
I think
weeks
we're,
later.
listen, we've,
But isn't
I-
it the same
we
now
tried.
that everything's on
We're
in
being-
October?
But
and
we're-
There's a runoff.
I think we're
No, they're
back
both
to
in
where we
He's saying-
were.
They're both in November. There's
It's
one
not,
general
it's mandatory
election
versus,
in November.
there is an occasion where
Later,
maybe
there's
there are no
runoff
runoffs.
in October.
But the
Yes.
history would indicate
Third week
that
in November,
there have always
But
been
I'm
runoffs, at least for the last however many years.
the general election. May of the
I think this is better, this is an improvement from today.
commissioners And the
Did we
mayoral
decide,
run would be the first Tuesday. of
Did-
November.
I thought we were gonna avoid the Tuesday after
Yep.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Was it?
We were, we put it to second week of December, but then when you do, I guess, early voting and staff time
That's
and
how it
all
had
that,
to be.
so Christina was.
No, she said I would avoid recommending December runoff. Because this
Remember-
would mean election day is the Tuesday following Thanksgiving.
Remember, Ron, her other concern was she cannot do a runoff any shorter than 4 weeks following the general. That was the other,
Well,
she needs
Right,
at least
so-
4 weeks.
yeah, so I thought we were saying we were looking at later in December, like the 10th or 11th or whatever. That's what we had said. We weren't, we never,
She
we
doesn't-
had agreed
What
with
he's
the.
saying, Ron, is
She
that
doesn't-
he doesn't want that, right now,
Gonna do leading up to that election day program.
No, this gives her we talked about it would be 5 weeks. And we were specifically did want to avoid that Tuesday after Thanksgiving. This isn't what we asked her to do, to opine on.
and she has written to the city clerk that is not
Right.
what she can accommodate.
No, she says very clearly, I would have difficulty remembering the summer as opposed to the November, because this would mean election is the Tuesday following Thanksgiving. That's not what we asked for.
He's just talking about early voting, because you have to read the next sentence.
Maybe we would pick participation.
We have early voting for.
14
days.
Right.
So
So
I
now
could
you're
be
in the
elected.
middle of the.
We have early voting for runoffs.
Yes.
Yes.
I think we're,
I don't. I mean,
we're there the last time.
I think the overall tone of her email, Ron, is that it's not gonna work.
She's a no.
Right, and
I
she
mean,
wants.
Raphael, if you want to weigh in,
She's a no.
okay.
Basically, she's saying this is how it's gonna be.
This is nice.
Yeah.
This is a good-
Right,
You know,
the,
So she
the
said,
city of Homestead right now, the city of Homestead, 3 years, right, Ralph?
Ever.
They, forever, Ralph, said, they have had their election in odd numbered years. The first Tuesday in October is the general and the runoff is the first Tuesday in November. Christina has, correct me if I'm wrong, Ralph, Christina has, sent the message out that she would prefer Miami Beach and Hialeah, the 3 cities that we all now have our election first Tuesday and 2 weeks later, the runoff in November, that she would like, that's what she,
That's the standard she wants.
so she likes the October 2nd.
Right. Should be
the first
specifically.
Tuesday in October.
So can we get a motion to just approve what we had approved before?
With this
I'll make that
little addition that I
with
noticed.
your- as amended by,
As amended.
James. So I got a motion, a second,
Second.
by Michael. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I should suggest additional meetings more often.
Uh,
So that's a unanimous as well? So, thank you, Ron. We tried. So next one is the compensation thing.
I'm gonna make a motion here.
No,
You
we're
know,
gonna discuss it
Let's
first.
discuss it first, because
I don't even think
We are.
We need to discuss it.
It's in- it's in the
we,
agenda.
so
I think we need.
I think we should, discuss it. So we have our recommendation here for the salaries,
Yes,
right?
Well, you already approved.
Right. Now,
But the commission, what's happened since, right, is
Yeah.
the commission has voted themselves. Right?
Correct.
Why don't you please
So-
describe
Do you
what
want me to read it?
and at a minimum, the numbers need to change, if nothing else. Because the numbers now, 41,000 is not correct,
right.
because they now.
Yes.
It's some more.
The question is, do you want to proceed with this question? Given that we're gonna have a multitude of ballot questions and given the commission's posture, or do you wanna?
We
Call it
may,
quits.
we may.
Okay.
Because on the one side, one would argue, listen, you know, it's a one-handed economy, right? On the one hand, I guess, you're right, the commission has taken their action,
Right.
read the leaves and move on. On the other hand, we did discuss that part of what this question was doing was closing that going forward, a loophole or whatever we want to call it, that ability to going forward, continue this practice.
And
And so-
also. Right, George, but also inserting the
Ethics. opinion.
voters. View of it, because
Right.
right now they did it on their own.
Right.
They, completely eliminated the will of the people, maybe not, maybe the people will say, yeah, I think that's appropriate. But they don't get an option unless we put this on the table.
but they're not gonna get an
Going-
option if the. if the
Going
commission
forward,
doesn't-
they don't get an option.
No,
And if it
then
passes,
the commission
right,
gets.
I mean, I'm just saying,
I think that's a harder vote, because at the meeting, Kristen Gonzalez, for example, raised the question about perhaps having this on the ballot with the voters to,
Yes, she did.
if she did.
Oh, I didn't-
So I think,
Yeah.
I think the fact that they voted themselves erased doesn't mean that they won't agree to this, to a change in the process, and if they do, then that's a piece of information voters should have.
they're not gonna agree to the
I
numbers.
agree. I think the voters have a
Then
right
let them reject it.
to weigh in
They've said they.
on their elected official salary. What the commission did, for better or for worse, they've taken the constituency out of the equation, said, we're gonna do what we wanna do, and that's what it is.
I don't think we should hold our tent now.
I agree.
Okay, listen,
So would
this
you like
is
to leave it
it's a
on?
policy call, up to you. We have a lot of ballot questions, so we're gonna have to have that discussion soon.
Well,
But if you feel this is important and wanna go forward with it, that's your call.
Are you guys, is this strong enough? Let me ask the question this way, if this passes. Could a future commission do what was just done?
No,
no,
no. It closes that interpretation.
right.
They would
Is
have,
that
but they
what-
they would have to want to have this on the ballot, and they
Agreed,
don't.
okay,
Well, let
then let them say.
But they gotta go on
Our job is to
record,
recommend.
to say that, and when they face the constituency, as Ron points out. This is an issue for a voter to decide on.
That's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I would propose one modification, just for a very brief discussion, is, we can look at whether, first of all, as you say, we may want
The
to
numbers have
change
to
the
be
numbers.
adjusted.
But I think the other thing that I felt that I had reservations about the first time around, and now, knowing how the commission approached this, they built in a cost of living, didn't they?
Yes, the CPI.
I'm okay with the cost of living in this, as long as it goes, as they get their cost of, we agree on a baseline.
If you're okay with that, that may also send a negative. If what you wanna do is make the voters, that may send a negative message to voters.
Yeah, I
But I don't
agree
think
with
it's
Raul.
reasonable to hold their compensation and everything constant for 10 years with that.
Remember, we.
I think that there should be some automatic increase, modest. And then only if they want more than that, then that's.
Well, do you want it like a cost of living not to exceed 3% per annum or something like that,
Well,
which is what we've typically done
Yeah.
in.
we have, and the
in
voters
city
haven't
budget
approved it, and-
situations.
Sure.
right, but the voters haven't approved it, and I thought what the board has said previously is that you want any increase to go to the voters.
I don't
He's
think.
just
it-
changing his mind.
Yeah, I don't think that that's practical. I don't think that the
Okay.
commission, we are creating a situation of it just getting out of whack. Once we decide, okay, here's an amount to give you, then it's just gonna get out of whack after
So,
5
so
years.
Ron, what we've usually done is,
I-
just from past practice,
Mhm.
we've stipulated a cost of living not to exceed 3% per annum, which means that anything over that would require a referendum.
I have a question. Didn't they just, in their stipend, didn't they just vote for the
They
CPI?
did.
Yeah, but
Yes.
this would override that if it passes. If it passes,
If
it's kind of hurdle.
if it passes,
But I don't mind
I
putting
mean, I don't
them
mind putting it in,
into
I'm
the
just saying they
recommendation.
just
If they
did
choose
this.
not to,
Right, right.
then
okay,
let the
yeah,
voters
it's all
decide,
right.
to measure.
that's your, that's your decision. We're not
Because, you
not
know,
here
they
to
didn't,
argue
they
with you.
didn't listen to our recommendation to wait. They just jumped right in. And,
Well, I
and
think
they
you were-
knew,
yeah.
they were afraid that we were, you know, I mean,
Right, they were aware of Elizabeth's motion, the board's, not the Elizabeth's, but the Charter Review Committee's motion. They were aware. The question is, do you still want to put this on the ballot? I'm hearing yes.
I
So-
think we wanna put it on the
Yes.
ballot, and if the commission decides they don't want it on there, they'll have to vote it off.
So
But-
as,
but-
as
So here's a
is,
question. Here's a question,
Okay,
because this
Dick,
this is now a tactical. So our numbers were based on a raise, so forth, it was giving.
Right,
CPI,
consistent with
right.
whatever the increase is.
What if we now say, establishing the sole exclusive compensation of, instead of it saying 60,000 and 55,000,
The numbers have to be adjusted.
we adjust those numbers to be exactly what they gave themselves.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Okay.
yes,
Which
that's
may
what
be
I'm
lower
thinking.
than this,
No, or higher, no, it'll be higher,
okay, but whatever that is, it's just that number, so now the
Okay.
voters get to vote on what they just did.
right,
Okay.
right, so we're not asking
Okay.
the
Change-
commission to give back what they think they already have.
Give them that number, I'd be curious to see those numbers.
Yeah, and,
And then, and say,
Nick,
but
do you know the
and,
number?
and in the interest
we
of,
have a summary of what it would be on a monthly basis, but I don't have it annualized. I need to do the math.
we can get
And
the
it's on the
number.
previous page. It's on 838.
I'm gonna tell you,
But
it's-
the number needs to be grossed up.
We can get the number.
Yeah. yeah, and so it's not gonna be too much more than the 1655 anyway, I don't think it's that
Well,
significant.
it is what it is.
yeah,
But
put it
let's
in.
say, so now,
And then one last question, I mean, what I had in my mind was more like 4% than 3, not to exceed,
No, you
because
did
remember,
three.
it is a CPI.
3%.
3%, when you look at, for example.
Three was an example, Ron.
Okay, never mind.
No,
Yeah,
but
you guys
3%
agree,
is the
I'll
save
agree.
our homes that
Right.
you use for, you know, the property.
Well, the last ballot question that the city sent out on that was, not to exceed, I think it was 3%,
Right.
whichever is the CPI.
Let's just change the
Like-
lesser of CPI or 3%.
Right,
I-
exactly.
Okay,
like
here's the
that.
thing, we were already at 75 words with your ballot question on compensation. And every word was very.
So how about we make it 2 questions, and let them at the call separately, but
Voter fatigue.
yeah, no, I know. I know, I think this question warrants a
We're not including cost,
opportunity to.
because we were already at 75 words.
I
I
agree.
don't think we should give up on this.
Guys, did you hear us? We may not have enough words.
We don't have,
to
I mean,
include
it was
the cost of
already at
living.
75 words, you remember, what was that?
So we have more,
Huh?
we have more, not enough, we have more words.
Okay, yeah,
Well, then wait a minute though.
can we remove the stuff now about the 10,000 and the 6,000? I know that you guys
No,
were,
those are the
No,
numbers that are actually
that's
in the chart.
Amending the charter,
how about removing the included within the 41?
no.
You wanted
No,
those.
but now that we're changing it to say, shall it be this number?
Well, now it will say included within the blank earnings, it'll be the new dollar
But he
amount,
said, no, he's saying strike.
Eliminate
it.
that.
Eliminate the
what-
2 parens.
but I
Because-
thought you just said that you want to
No,
reference
no,
it.
no, I'm saying,
Oh.
establish the solar.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Of-
wants, he wants
So
it
wait,
X.
so just increasing
Change the 6.
10,000 from mayor to blank dollars,
Yeah.
which is what they're earning
But you have
now,
The actual number.
What you have here is
Yeah,
in
I-
the 60,000,
right?
change the 60,000 to whatever the math works,
The actual number.
the actual number. For the mayor, and instead of 55, it'll
And
be
blank
whatever
for the
the
commissioners
commissioners-
instead of the charters 10 and 6.
Yeah, and drop the part of, we were trying to help with the
Right.
Yeah,
Included
drop-
within the
drop
current,
the-
the
the
current
increase
numbers,
stipend.
yeah.
And
And
everything.
wait, I just want to go back and find that, the last time this went out to the voters,
Like 4 years ago.
2018.
Yeah.
2018.
Gee, they
It
don't-
was,
they don't care.
No, I know, but I just want to explain to them, it was the, to allow an annual compensation increase based upon consumer price index issued by the department not to exceed 3%.
I'm not exactly a fan of that myself, but I'm gonna go for our system.
Are you guys,
The lesser of
unanimous on that?
CPI or 3%. What do you guys,
okay,
I mean,
they gave it to themselves. Do I have to? I mean, we don't have to. What did you say?
Well, I wanna give them half a chance. I don't want them to say, I'm opposed to this because it's not right that it doesn't go up and end of the vote and we're done. I don't wanna have them vote.
Basically, what we're doing is
Yes.
kind of, we're
yes,
putting
yes.
what they just did to a vote.
That's right,
Not to
what
exceed
they
3%.
voted,
We get the ethics question.
yeah, we're making it such that future
Let's do it.
instances about that.
The lesser of CPI or 3%.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's what was in 2018.
okay.
Okay,
I think that's the right
Well,
thing.
let me just do a quick. Okay, I presume we can add that.
And you can, I guess you can drop the trends, including within the.
Right.
Those things.
Yeah.
You know what,
Okay.
can I just do a quick, let's see. Yeah,
Pick
you
up
know,
like
we
10
would say,
words
we
here.
would just say,
To be adjusted by the lesser of CPI or 3%.
adjusted by
And
3%
you don't have to define
receipt
CPI in
or
the ballot
consumer
question.
precise index.
yeah, we know
What
what you
was that,
want,
Rick?
taking a CPI increase, but not to exceed 3%.
Right.
Within the
Saying
wording,
You don't need
okay.
to use all the words of, it's
Okay.
price index.
And then the actual numbers, and we take all that stuff, including
Right.
whatever from the stipend, because it's just an actual number.
And that's on page 38 of your.
Yeah.
So do we know what the numbers are?
You have to
What
give one or
the
the
numbers
other,
are?
because we don't have a
We'll
report.
find out.
Yeah.
The math whiz will
But
take care of
doesn't-
it.
is the stipend includes car allowance, includes phone, includes all
We're
that?
saying
I mean, I'm
that
just making sure that.
The number that we put in the ballot question will include everything,
Everything.
Right,
everything. That was your intent, to make it all quote unquote
Right.
salary
right.
and close the quote unquote loophole.
Exclusive.
Motion,
I'll move.
motion by Michael Band, second by
Second.
Ron Starkman, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? There's none, unanimous.
Okay.
All right,
Great.
I'm counting 9 ballot questions so far, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, let's see, let's go to that.
So that's item 6, which is a chart that we prepared, a summary of issues.
Thank you.
Considered by the
Should do this.
board.
So we've got Bill of Rights as we've done today.
Yes,
And that's
Page
two
103.
Yeah.
201 is the, we just said reaffirm that. Section 202, we just reaffirmed. Section 203, the gifts, we've already done, right?
Yeah.
Section 205 is the,
It's done.
this is the,
That's
the
the
thing
two
about the
public
advertising?
hearings and the advertising.
and the two
The
public
two
hearings is in
7
there as well.
seconds.
Right.
And
Yeah, I
then
think-
vacancies,
I think
we've done
we're done with all the
1, 2, 3,
questions.
4, 5, 6, 7. This over here, the pending issues we've taken care of.
Well, the one that is requires some changes are the Bill of Rights and penalties. But
Two,
you
three,
essentially
four, 5, 6,
approve
7.
them.
We're gonna have 8, because there's
that's
two.
too quick, it's
Yeah.
just
There's
two
Two
questions.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're looking at
And then
pretty
you
much
have your
9.
housekeeping.
We're
Because
looking at
right,
9.
housekeeping, so we're at 9 now. So now would be helpful if the board could prioritize. If you wish to, or do you want to
No,
present all night?
we present.
Okay, because we're drafting the report, so we will
Yeah.
present the report as, these are all of your recommendations for placement on the November ballot.
That's okay,
I would just list them in numerical order here, the way you have them here.
what page is that?
41 of your.
41.
How much?
Oh, I think-
41, you said?
41.
41.
Yeah, I think these are all,
It was like this, yeah.
that's 9 questions.
Yeah.
Right? You have two bill of rights. Fees. and then there has to be-
103, right, 201 is the election. 202 is the compensation, 203 is
Yes,
the gifts and the non-appearance. And
Alright.
205 are the public hearing and the notice, and 207 is the vacancy and the 2 bill of rights. And then the conformer.
so are there any questions pending? Did we? put anything on
Commissioner
our-
Rosen Gonzalez referral.
Right, we'll get to that in a second. Those are the two that, anything that we had on our to-do list. That you recall.
I thought of something that we ought to add in here, permanent parking
Oh,
for all of us who participated in this, in the city of Miami.
Like a bill of
I want
rights.
it in the charter.
Yes. Michael's bill of
I
rights.
wanna be able to keep my free parking.
Bravo.
We can extend the committee.
I don't
Can we at least get it through the end of the year?
But then-
So no, so nothing, we.
I didn't hear anything, Ralph. I wanna add,
Yeah, so
I'm just
so
saying,
so you've recommended 9 questions to the commission.
Nine.
Well, upwards of 9.
At least right
because
now.
It may not be, the housekeeping. Remember, we told you from day one, we can't tell you exactly the number until you're all done, and then we sit down and start looking at all this. The housekeeping, the conforming question, we'll have to see if we need that even. I think we do, but, we'll.
Do, that's
we'll
fine, if not,
evaluate.
that'll be it. Let me see what else, so. Then we've got the 2 items that the commission sent us. We kind of had a preview of it when Commissioner Rosenthal visited us last month.
Right, and those, I'm sorry to interrupt, but those would be, if approved by the committee, straw ballots.
Right, before I go, item number 6, is there any action you need, or you've got what you need?
What's it?
6 was the 9 questions.
No,
You're
No,
good, so those have all been voted on. Okay, so, a strong mayor form of government. Anybody wish to advocate for that? I'll take the con side,
You'll take the what side?
the con side, again,
I've this is the only city that I've ever lived in that does not have strong mayor. So, I mean, this is different for me.
We lived in a city this size.
I grew up in Prattville, Alabama, so yeah,
it's not a size issue.
Montgomery.
You're right.
okay.
It's not a size
It
issue.
depends on I think it depends on the culture of our tax.
So Phoenix, Arizona is a strong mayor form of government, San Antonio, Charlotte, North Carolina, San Jose,
Atlanta.
Texas. There are a number of large cities that are strong manager form of government, and there are a number that are strong mayor form of government. Generally speaking, the strong mayor is more found in the larger cities.
That's what I'm used to
That's a
for 30
rule of thumb, I would say. But the key thing that I'm talking about is strong mayor versus council manager we have now, or commission manager form is. You have 7 commission members, all who have generally equal authority. The moment you have one elected official who's outside the commission, who's in charge and running the day-to-day, not to mention the notion that you may or may not get a qualified person to actually be an administrator. You diminish the authority and power of the commission, hers, individually. And so the strong mayor comes at the expense of the commissioners.
I agree with you. But is it our decision to weigh in, or should it be voters' decision? Look, there's a parade of horribles. I would never vote for a strong mayor in the city of Miami Beach,
I would
But-
agree with that.
but that's me. Isn't it up to the citizens to make a call? I mean, assuming that they were sufficiently advised, and it wouldn't be, it's a straw ballot, so it's, it would ultimately reconfigure this committee to create a ballot amendment, a new charter, in effect, to do it with the costs, the ups, the downs, hearings and everything else.
I think the downside is not worth the upside.
Well,
A straw ballot is, you know, if you wanna do it, then let's have somebody kind of put together that recommendation, but I don't
Well,
know.
I think from the position of our board. I don't see a compelling reason to make such a major.
Yeah.
Change. I mean, this is really major, and I think it would be almost, it's premature. We're not, we would have to spend a lot of time.
I don't think anybody would even understand
To
it.
really look at all the pros
lot
and the
of
cons before making a recommendation. So I think that
There
we
goes your
feel that,
You get your parking.
Yeah.
you know, that would be my answer is
I'm
that
sending my tickets to
we
Ralph.
don't feel qualified or that we, you know, to make a recommendation on this. Given that the implications are broad, extensive, and that
Negates everything we just did.
And I'm gonna tell you that the potential for good versus the potential for bad,
yes.
it doesn't quite
Right.
pencil out.
I like this form of government, to be honest with you. So,
Yeah, I do too. I think this works.
Look, the system,
I
the
agree.
system isn't broken.
No.
but
Maybe
you're
you
still
need
gonna
to
make me
make it better,
go
but-
mail in my ballot.
Yeah.
You know, I agree. I just, I am not convinced that it's our call to make one way or the other.
No,
It was-
and let them, I think if the commission, what the commission might wanna do is put this on the ballot. A straw ballot question, but I don't think we as a
We
committee
shouldn't
should.
take it this way.
What is, do you know the impetus for why this question is even, what, do you know what,
She was
why?
here last
She
week.
was-
I know, but
Yeah, that's-
she
yeah,
didn't,
that's
she
true.
didn't,
Because she's not even gonna be on the commission,
The
she,
concern-
but she can run for mayor.
Her, I'm paraphrasing what she shared with us, is the notion that, you know, the mayor gets elected to effect change or make a difference or, you know, implement an agenda. And in her mind, the shackles of government prevent that from then happening.
see,
That is, in my argument, I would say that that's more a function of the individual than it is about the system.
I
You
got it.
know, you get a mayor and the system has worked for the years that it has worked, and there have been mayors who have been strong, and there have been mayors who have not been strong. And it's a function of the mayor and how they pull the levers of government and the manager in partnership with that makes it or doesn't make it happen.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's the check and balances that's in place.
I'm fine with how we
I,
are.
I think we're all in agreement, we might as well move on. Or somebody else on this,
Is it no recommendation?
I'll make that.
And then the second item that came our way,
It's Michael
I
Van's.
think we kind of
We talked about that
addressed it
before.
as part of the other action we just did with the election, right? This was the even year election.
Right.
that we just voted to have the October, November, August. And so by the action we took on item. Well,
4.
4. We kind of.
Yeah.
Indirectly answered. Item 6 or 7. So
8.
8. Is that fair to say?
not necessarily, because like you could do the same two dates on an even year as an odd year.
No, because I think what Christina White wants is for us to follow the county.
Yeah, she wants August and November.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I got you, that,
It was August and
We
November.
didn't want to do an extra election. She wants to do less elections.
okay.
She said she didn't have time anyway.
So is that, I guess, no recommendation on that?
No recommendation.
Or our recommendation is we recommended item number 4. That'd
Okay,
be the fair way to reply. You didn't nicely say that, but we considered it and we prefer item number 4.
okay,
That'll be just in the report, I guess, right?
yes,
Is this report gonna be written by special counsel?
yes, oh, well, it's gonna be written by all of us. You want us to talk about that for a
Yeah,
few
so
minutes?
hang on a second.
Oh, sorry,
Yes.
Well, go ahead. You're-
Well, it may follow.
I just wanna talk about what happens now.
I
Right, no.
wanna kind of get it in my mind you know, how it proceeds. We get the document, we all agree to it, it gets sent to the commission.
Yes,
And
this,
go ahead.
what happens next is on April 16th, obviously will be our last meeting as a committee. We will present a draft of the final report to you. The final report will cover obviously the history and background and give a little.
Process, what we did.
Right,
who we invited.
right, what you did and how you got there. We want to make the report as concise as possible so that they don't, you know, get exhausted reading it. So we're looking at maybe something that's about, a document that's about 8 pages max.
Really, that short?
Yes,
Or what about like an executive summary and a, you know, because like, for example, I would want to make sure that the 8 or 9 recommendations we have, there should be some, not just saying this is what's recommended, but some color commentary about
Yeah. Like a paragraph or two.
Yes.
why we
Yes.
recommend and what the
We
pros
agree.
and cons, you know, what the pros of this are and.
we agree.
Okay.
We were also going to include, obviously, the text, the agreed upon text that you've all worked so hard on as an appendix to the report. So the report, so it won't be 8 pages because, you know, if you want to go further and read the individual ballot question text, it'll be more. But bottom line is we wanted to keep it as concise as possible, but also obviously including how you got there and what your rationale was. So the report would be the draft version of the report would be presented at our April 16th meeting. And then Jean, you want to talk about the process for getting the report approved?
Approved here?
Well,
or
you
the
mean,
commission?
well, again, we'll have the report done for placement on this board's April 16th agenda, but we will send, as customary, we will send to the chairman prior to the 16th so that if there's any missing facts that we need, you could plug in to be finalized by the board
Well,
at its April 16th meeting.
Can we have the entire board have this in
Yeah.
advance? Yes.
Yeah, it'll be in the agenda, which you get.
Yeah,
what,
I mean,
a week
just-
before?
Okay,
So the-
I
It'll be in the
agree with
agenda.
this, just otherwise, excuse
Yeah,
me,
no,
you know.
it'll be in the
Right.
agenda.
Right, because there may be some things that we need some more information on for you all to provide as to your reasoning.
So
for
before
things.
the agenda gets published, no new renders review.
Hmm.
You know, so what you're saying
The
is
general,
let me do the same thing and kind of make sure that before it gets printed and published, which is still days before we meet.
Yeah.
Right,
right, it has whatever,
Follow-ups that you need.
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, is that okay with you guys? to defer?
yeah, but it does become a public document.
Yes.
As
Yeah.
soon as you send it to all of us, or even as soon as you
It's a,
send it.
well, I think it's a public record, it's in the.
Yeah,
okay.
even the draft is a
Yeah,
public
the
document.
published agenda is the public version.
Will it be accessible on the website or?
As part of the agenda, yes.
And
What do you want it accessible to you or to the citizens?
Well, I just wanna know whether it's accessible to the world before we've had a chance to comment on it.
The draft will be included in the agenda, so it'll be a
Draft.
public document accessible on the web.
Right.
Draft.
Then, once you, on April 16th, hopefully, you'll give us your comments and hopefully approve the final report. And then that report is transmitted, will be eventually transmitted to the commission as the Charter Review Committee's final report with its recommendations.
do we make any how does the commission handle it? Do they look at it and say, do we, and I have any right or any responsibility or the option of going in front of the commission?
Yeah, of course you do.
And saying,
Of course you do.
this is why we did this.
This is what we plan to do as the attorneys to the committee, right?
We'll do individual.
After the Charter Review Committee adjourns on April 16th, having approved the final report, we have that. But what we plan to do is hopefully schedule individual briefings with the mayor and commissioners to go over the issues, as well as have 2 committee of the whole meetings where they're in. Ralph, what were the tentative dates for the committee of the whole? Do you have them? These are the meetings that are held during the city commission meeting, okay, but we wanted to have individual briefings and then 2 committee of the whole meetings. So that the commission can digest the ballot questions.
Right, but
Those
I'll do it during the
questions.
commission meeting, separate.
It's May.
It's during the commission meeting.
No, I'm suggesting
The mayor
No.
said.
he wants to do it.
The mayor doesn't doing it during.
Yes,
Well, the problem
They have
is,
no attention span.
George, here's the challenge.
The
And we
city-
discussed this with the city attorney and the city manager. And the way the commission likes to do business now. Scheduling is difficult, so we're definitely gonna schedule individual briefings ahead of time. But what we'd like to do is the reason for having those two committee of the whole meetings, and we anticipate those to be in May and June. If I'm not mistaken, is so they can give us their final comments as to any tweaks that we may have, that they may want done to the ballot questions and or the text. In other words, the same thing you guys have been doing, we want to give them an opportunity to do. So hopefully that by the time we get to the commission in July, which is the deadline to approve these questions and transmit them to the county is July 25th, I believe. So hopefully at that July meeting, we will have the ballot questions in final form and they will be approved by the city commission.
Do we as a board play a role of any in these two committee of the whole meetings?
They're public meetings, so you're welcome to
But-
attend.
But beyond that,
If you'd like to, maybe one of you as chair, George, could address the commission.
Yeah, the idea was to do the same thing with the city commissioners as we're doing here, is to educate them
Right.
on
But
the
who's
ballot questions.
educating them?
yeah, that's what I'm saying, so that's, I
Is it
envision.
you guys or is it us or?
Well,
who's
we-
educating
Us,
them?
the attorneys.
Well, no, I think we should be able to participate.
In the committee of the whole meetings?
First of the, that's different things. First, there's so we transmit the report,
Right,
right? Give them time to read it or whatever.
Right,
Then we were gonna do
Individual
agenda
briefings.
briefings. Those agenda briefings, I think appropriately, you guys.
right.
Together with one or more of us.
I have to tell you that that's, first of all, the scheduling is very tight. And it's very hard to schedule the city commissioners, for 2 hour blocks, which is what we anticipate minimum.
But-
Each individual briefing taken,
So
so,
that's what I'm saying is you schedule those meetings and then one of us.
George, I also have concerns about just from an attorney-client standpoint.
Yeah.
There are certain
And
things that are going to.
if you
create
guys want to
exposure
meet
for
with
the
them
city.
separately to talk about the ballot questions, that's great in terms of lobbying where you got there. But we really think these individual briefings need to be technical meetings, as Nick said, between attorney and client. Because we may have some recommendations there that,
Well, I know, it is
That's-
today, you're gonna have a recommendation
Against-
right.
contrary to what we've proposed, which is fine.
That's fine, but we should be able to inform
Your
the-
attorneys making recommendations that,
To our
you know,
client.
you
Your
want
client,
your
our client.
client to
Right.
be aware of before they accept.
Right,
Right.
right.
But we should, as a committee, be able to inform them.
I think
as
an
well,
I think
more
an
than
appro-
just in writing.
I
You
think
have
an
every right to
appropriate
do that.
forum to do that, George, is at the committee of the whole. When we've done charter review in the past, we've never had committee members present during the individual briefings with commissioners, just like we don't, it's like an agenda review. But I think the committee of the whole is a public meeting, and if you want to designate a representative, or if all of you want to attend the committee of the whole, which will happen after the individual
So-
briefing, so your perspective will come following that.
Is there an opportunity for someone from this committee to present the report publicly?
You can
To
do
the
that at the
commission?
city commission meeting, sure.
Is
Yeah,
that?
cus-
As a matter of fact, that would be great.
Customarily, the chair has presented the report to the city commission at the meeting, has formally
we-
presented the
At the
report.
meeting, at the commission meeting, not the committee of the whole meeting.
Well, we've never done this with committee of the whole
That's-
before charter review.
That's the only opportunity for the public to hear
Right,
the recommendation.
No,
So
I-
committee of the whole is
right.
public
Committee of
meeting,
the whole
but
is public.
not.
Yeah,
But you
no, I
can
think
present, you
that's,
can present it both at the committee of the whole
Sure.
and at the final commission meeting to
Sure.
approve questions. Yeah, of course.
that would be
The
good.
next one, I'm not gonna be here, so.
At the.
Well, you'll designate,
So-
usually it's the chair that's designated, but any of you are free to
Yeah,
attend.
well, maybe two of us.
Yeah, two,
I mean, you and I,
of course. But it would be. April, hopefully finalize. Transmit.
The final report.
Yeah, final
Yeah.
report.
Yeah,
Transmit
April
in
16th.
May.
Do you
Transmit so
have the
that
meeting dates
is
in there?
so it's the plan that at the, you guys meet once a month, right?
I'm gonna give you the dates right
I
now.
have
If
them.
Ralph doesn't have them,
I
I
have them,
do.
I have them.
But I'm gonna give you the dates right now. You have them?
Yeah,
You wanna go over them?
so the first,
April 16th.
The first date in your timeline is that we would present the draft final report to the Charter Review Board on April 16th.
Okay.
That's our meeting.
That's
yeah.
us.
Yes. And then you're done.
Right,
No, we're not done.
Well,
No,
you're
right.
theoretically, we're not
Right.
meeting as a committee anymore.
the city commission next meets on May 15th, which is when we'd like to hold the first committee of the whole. And
Is that,
So between the 16th of April and May 15th,
We will be
you
doing
will hold
individual
your
briefings.
individual meeting.
that's
with
right,
Each of the 7.
that's right.
Correct.
And then there's one more commission meeting before the July ballot question deadline, which would be June 26th.
That's
If
your
we need,
second
if
meeting
we
of
need
the
a
whole?
second committee of the whole, yes.
Right.
when's it, July?
And the July meeting is July 24th, which is when the commission would need to adopt any ballot questions and.
So guys, one thing I want to interject there, I think your participation in the committee of the whole is welcome. Because if we do, once we do have that second meeting, second committee of the whole meeting in June. From our perspective, and I'm sure from yours, we would like to be done with all comments and questions at that time. So that we can integrate those comments and questions and be before the city committee on what date, Nick?
On, yeah, July, well,
Right, have them already.
Yeah, July.
24.
right,
That's when you're just voting to put the.
Right,
vote-
that's where-
The questions on.
He was the chairman, we'll present it, we will answer any questions, but I
On the
think you all
24th?
agree, what?
On the 24th.
The
No,
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 you will have
July,
already presented.
the
Right.
July
Yeah.
city commission meeting,
that's the final
No, no.
meeting,
That's
No,
the
that's
final
right.
one, just
Yeah.
the rest.
right, but that's what we have.
right,
Right, but
That's
you'd
the
be
first
presenting at the
public-
committee of the
full
whole,
public
at the
meeting.
May. at
The other
May meeting.
two are committee of the
Working.
whole, probably in a conference room somewhere off.
Yeah, the two
By the way,
committees of
They're
the whole
public
are.
meetings.
by the way, they don't need,
Public,
yeah,
but
they don't-
they're not gonna be on
They're just on the
TV
commission.
and all that.
Well, you know what, but that's the purpose of this charter review committee, because sure, the questions and everything is gonna be approved in a public forum, but. It's July 24th, guys, by then, the work that's been done a year and a half here. And we've had briefings for the commissioner, I mean. We don't intend, and I don't think it's a good look for any of us to be rewriting ballot questions on the floor.
No,
Right.
no,
On the
no,
24th.
no,
What I'm- what I'm saying,
So
what I'm suggesting.
I
is
want us
that-
to come with a unified front.
My suggestion might be that somewhere in this schedule, probably at the May 15th meeting, at the commission meeting, before you get to break out to the committee of the whole. There's a presentation of the report to the commission.
There's a
Then they go into-
presentation of the
Of
report,
the report,
but
the
that.
public presentation of the committee. Ron and I, or whoever the committee members that attend. Present and say, we met this many times, we did, a public airing of what took place. Then in the committee of the whole, you can really dive into the questions. But otherwise, that presentation in July, all the questions have already been done. It's no
Well-
form at that point.
We could certainly talk about putting an agenda item in
you
May,
have to, yeah,
yeah,
I mean, don't you think?
Yes,
Because
I think
otherwise,
it's very-
what are we
No, but
presenting in
that was my
July?
question.
that's fine.
That's a
You
better-
know, at the end, it's already done.
Yeah.
But, our
Well,
first opportunity.
vacation.
We're
will
hoping that
be
by
May.
April 16th, everything is really
No, no, no,
done.
no.
That's done. We're done.
Because I mean,
We're done,
okay,
but you know,
We
we have,
what do you anticipate after April,
have-
what do you anticipate happens after April 16th? We
So-
explained these to
well,
the commissioner, right?
committee, the commission,
You'll call
We'll
your
look at
commissioner,
it.
you call your commission, you offer up
Right.
your presentation.
The commission will
they
look at it
have
and
their-
basically hopefully just decide which questions to place on the ballot or not, but. And some commissioners may have tweaks, but I trust that the reason for creating this ad hoc committee. Was that the commission's delegated this function, the real nitty gritty work, text and ballot questions to you guys. So I expect that's what, I expect that's what your recommendation is gonna be when you meet with commissioners.
Yes.
Approve this is what we
Right, well,
approve,
no, you're
But
right.
for example,
you're right.
For
okay,
example, there's.
because we're not gonna be saying anything contrary either.
But for example, if the commission decides that item 202 relating to salaries
Okay,
that we're recommending,
right,
they decide, I don't want that,
okay,
we're done, we're not even gonna talk about it.
right,
And if there's no presentation of our report, it never gets the light
Understood.
hearing.
But I wanna
And
explain,
it's
George
warrants.
and Michael, I want to explain, this is a concerted effort, but I want to explain our role in the individual briefings. We're just gonna go into the individual briefings and do what we've done with this committee, explain what those questions mean and how they change the charter. We're not taking, we don't make policy.
Except one.
No, we don't make policy, so we're not going in there to say, you know what, just ignore this question, they're just full of hooey. That's not what we're
I'm
doing.
not suggesting that.
Just let me understand, because I want you to have a little bit of trust also.
It's not a
Yeah, but
question that-
we
Okay,
just want
all right.
one opportunity.
Yeah, but my whole,
By the way,
my whole
we've all
goal,
said that.
gentlemen
We've said
and
that.
lady,
I think,
but
there's no
our whole
question here.
goal is so that we can get before the commission. These are 9 questions, it's fairly in depth, that we can go as one and just get this expedited so that we can be at the county in time.
We both have the same.
So we have no stake in whether it's 1 question or 9 questions. Our job is to explain to what our client, what the charter review committee did and what these questions mean. Is that acceptable?
Of course.
Okay.
But this committee, that's a publicly established committee, has
Yes.
met for a year and a half or whatnot,
Right.
probably should have more than just a written report
Correct.
delivered to the commission.
Agreed,
Beyond your delivery of it,
agreed.
we all should get up and say, hey, even if it's just to get the public, thank you.
Nobody's
Wonderful,
saying
yeah,
otherwise.
this is your mind.
So when is that?
Absolutely.
Yes,
You should all
as
be there.
early as, first of all, it could be as early as after you vote on your final report.
So I'm
You
thinking
could
it's
make-
either
you
the
could
May
reach out to
meeting-
them individually. But the committee of the whole on May 15th,
Yeah, it could be.
and if you want to make a presentation, during the regular portion of the meeting, fine.
Yeah.
That's what we
That's what I
suggest.
think.
Yeah,
So,
nobody is
So
disagreeing
we
with
put
that.
an agenda item
Yeah.
for
So
May.
an item in May that allows us to formally, officially,
Present.
publicly say
Present your report.
this. Just like the auditors come and present an audit, it's just kind of come and say, we spent, we did, we liked, we didn't like. I'd like to say, I think with all the votes, we're unanimous,
Yes,
and we wanna say, these are our best recommendations.
That's great.
For the
Right.
improvement of the charter.
that's great.
It addresses a lot of different things. We'll get into the details in your committee of the whole.
That's wonderful.
We can enumerate them and just move on. I'm not gonna get
Yeah,
into-
because I guess your job is really to sell these questions.
Well, that's the point.
Because that's not our job.
After July, we have a. rule.
Right, right,
Which is to
And
answer
to let the voters at least have one shot. I mean,
right.
for those people who are,
Yeah, but Ron, you know what I don't want to, with
Yeah.
all due respect to everyone here, because we have been at this a year and a half and we have sat in 4-hour meetings every shot, and this committee has done an incredible job. I don't want the good work of this committee. I want us to go as one in July, so I don't want some member of the audience telling us how to rewrite a ballot question.
no,
When we
that's not
put
what
in
I'm
a
saying.
year and a half.
No, I
research.
agree with you
And
100%. We
I
don't wanna
trust
see
that's
it
your-
rewritten
We
either.
are happy
But
with
what
the
we
work
might
we've done.
wanna say is, what we might wanna see is some members of the public see what our 9 questions are, or proposed
Okay, so
ballot
that on the
questions, and
agenda?
they can say,
Yeah,
Commissioner, I really
I mean-
do hope you put this on the
yes,
ballot.
yes.
That's the kind
Yes.
of dialogue, that's.
I
what we're
agree
looking
with that,
for.
but I also think the feedback from the committee to the individual commissioners or at the public meeting is a great idea because it gives them confidence that these questions and the text reflect the will of this committee,
Right.
so that they don't
That's-
have to, that's the point. You guys spent a year and a half doing that. They shouldn't have to spend an hour, they should have the full support of this committee behind
But
it.
let me also suggest, post-July, whatever's gonna be put on the ballot, the Herald's gonna weigh in
Yes,
with recommendations,
yes,
and who should meet with the editorial board?
That should be
The
us.
chair,
Well, that's what I'm suggesting.
If,
Yeah.
if
It
the
should
city
be-
commission, if the city commission directs you to. That I think that's a city commission call as to, once your work is done here, once the report is done. If remember before we have talked about the education, process. The city commission, you could express when you make your presentation, your willingness to participate further with
Yeah,
regards to that.
it's not just the.
But it's not just you all
MPU
most
or the
respectfully
Chamber of
showing up.
Commerce.
It's the commission would have to authorize you to engage
Well-
in that communication.
Gee, what if,
Don't you think, Ralph?
what if a reporter,
As a resident, I can.
you know, yeah, I mean,
Sure,
what if
right, but
a
we're talking
reporter
about
knows, you know,
chairman.
does a little homework and sees that George was the chairman of this commission, this committee, and they decide to call him,
Yeah.
ask him a question.
That's fine.
I think Gene's suggestion was that if the commission does, you know, if designated one of you to speak on behalf of the city, I mean, that.
No, I can't speak on behalf of the city.
Right.
No, you mean us approaching the paper and saying,
Right,
we wanna let you.
No, but
know.
listen.
Well, it'll
as we
probably
get
be your
closer-
city manager, whoever that is at the time,
As we get
you
closer
know,
to.
but I'm sure they're gonna rely a
November,
lot on George.
As we get closer to November.
Yeah.
You know, if there's a candidates forum or something like that, you know, one of these bodies might say, hey, can we take 30 minutes or 15 minutes? And have one of us.
Yeah, you know what,
speak
that's
on
all,
those
yeah,
ballots.
that's all terrific.
Chamber of Commerce, the MBU.
Yeah, that's, I think that's all terrific, and you know, and that's, you know, whatever you guys decide is the best thing to decide. He's gonna be gone, the manager will be gone, the city attorney will be gone, so. Well, I don't know about the manager, forgive me,
Where's Nick
I
going?
can't fathom what's in Alina's head, but whoever decides,
Where's Nick going? Or maybe you announced it before, but I missed. it.
he's going to the county,
joining the county attorney's office.
And he's taking me with him.
he's going to the county attorney's office, so,
Boy,
you know, so the new city attorney will be taking.
So there isn't a need for another one of these meetings other than April 16th.
No.
Yeah.
Barring something.
No, we wanted all our work to be done before Nick left. So hopefully on April
When are you
16th.
out?
April 19th.
Not cutting it too close.
yeah, just as that guy.
You said just for that,
But guys, you know, in terms, I think you guys have a good idea. That's why your attendance at the committee of the whole and your discussion with individual commissioners may be valuable
But I-
because you really explained the ballot questions from the residents' point of view, from the activist point of view, more than, we're just gonna be technicians and they're probably gonna, you know, be so bored with us in the briefings, but you guys really put it in the context of what it should mean. But you know, my only goal is that we all go as one
Yeah,
and that
don't
they
worry.
all get adopted, you know?
Don't worry.
So we're all on the same team,
Absolutely.
but I don't want you to think at all that you're, that, you know, that after April 16th, you have no role.
Team charter review, so you guys will put an item for basic, the May meeting? And I think, you know, it shouldn't just be me, I mean, all of you should attend, but.
Yes,
Yeah.
the more the merrier.
You and I should do that.
Yeah, in your next agenda, we'll post a timeline of what happens after April 16th.
And can we get
I
a
don't wanna
time
present
certain
myself.
for that?
No, I don't, I think one person is.
What?
We will have.
We could be
Yeah.
over, we could be intimidated, whatever, it's.
Yeah.
Bad.
Please
I don't
do,
wanna.
please do meet with your elected officials.
Yeah, we should all
You're the heart and soul.
communicate with, after the 16th, we should meet
Yeah.
whoever appointed us.
Yeah, really, you
Offer
guys,
up,
you guys have been passionate about this. You're the heart and soul of
I think
this.
it's important,
So,
I think this is a true statement.
I agree.
And I think, by the way, thank you guys for the
Yeah.
hard work you guys
no,
did.
thank you.
And
I think it's
seriously,
important.
thank you so much.
I think it's important for
Because-
the commission to know how hard you work.
But I want the report, I think it's a true statement, it's important, like, every item that we're recommending was a unanimous one. I think there's anything here
That's
that
true.
didn't.
Right.
We'll confirm, but I think that's right, yeah. I
Which
think
means
that's right.
that, you know, we went through it, got to consensus. It's not extreme positions anywhere. For all of us to always agree on it, it was no group thing, we all worked through it. And
Yeah.
I think it's important to reflect that, you know.
That's a great point,
There was
George. I like
an
that.
important component to it.
Yeah.
And there were some that we voted that failed along the way.
Right.
And so we've had votes along the way that failed, and so
Yeah.
we're only presenting you that which we felt had the most consensus.
Unanimously agreed upon.
Yeah.
We didn't start out that way, but it worked out that way.
Yeah,
And I also want to reiterate that the committee's role is doubly important because I don't want to keep throwing a lead out because that's not my plan, but we did lose our committee rep, Marsha Montserrat.
That's right.
You know, so the administration, you know, is not as fully versed as you are in what we've been doing. So it's doubly important that the committee really, and I know you all will. So,
We can meet with all of them, right? That's
Yes.
the benefit of having,
Individually.
yes.
having no
Free to-
no
Free to
districts.
speak to any of them. Yeah, there's no restriction, there's no cone of silence.
Not cone of silence,
Right.
sunshine law. Question. After April 16th. Which means that, for all intents and purposes, we're not voting on it. This committee is, well, not disbanded, probably. Could I and Michael, or I and Ron, or two or more of us brief a commission?
I,
Well,
I
I
think,
think
It's a matter,
Assuming the
They
committee has
disbanded
sunset
or not.
Right.
yeah, I
on
think
April
that,
16th.
I think that by resolution, and I don't have it in front of me, but
you see where I'm going with this, is, you know,
Yeah.
we can do.
Yeah,
I think
but
the
we may have
board does
extended the
sunset on
committee
a
till
certain
July. I think we extended it to July or something.
But remember, again, but it's matters that are or foreseeably
Right.
before the, so
That
once we
reasonably
have voted.
foresee will appear before you all for action.
So if April
Right, so
16th is our
in
last
theory-
meeting, even though
The
we
last
exist,
day we can take any action.
right,
Yes.
could we
Voting
then,
review.
could we then have?
Individual
And the-
discussion.
Assuming that
Not
the
only individual,
commission.
but you and I can
Assuming
go.
the
individually,
committee
right?
does sun- that the
Right,
committee
or-
does sunset on April 16th, there would be no problem with
It's not a
that.
sunset though, I think the sunset, it went to July.
It's
July.
We gave ourselves to July.
Well, I said assuming. I said assuming, so we'll have to get back to you on April 16th with that
Oh.
answer.
so your,
It goes
are
to
you,
June.
the board sunsets on June 30th. Yeah, on June 30th.
But if we have no more meetings scheduled after the 16th.
The commission would have to
No, I don't,
disband.
I don't think
think.
that cuts it. I think
Yeah.
if more than one of you want to meet with city commissioners after April 16th, then we would have to amend that resolution.
Yeah,
That's what I
to-
was
to-
thinking.
Expressly state that the committee has sunset as of acceptance of the final report on April 16th.
but after June 30th, you could, during the
Sure.
prior to final adoption of the ballot questions and during the education period, which is, the summer and fall.
And guys, this is done to protect you.
No, I
Right.
realize that, I get it.
Right.
Well, there's a commission meeting coming up on March 29th, whatever,
April 3rd.
April 3rd. Could that be put on the ballot that we want to sunset it
On the agenda.
on the agenda now?
Nick?
Do you wanna do that? 'Cause
An
what if
amendment to the
they-
resolution.
I wouldn't do
On the,
that.
on the
Because
April agenda, maybe save
What
that,
if they
maybe let's see how
send
we're doing
stuff
and do it
back
for
to us?
May.
Yeah.
Rewrite or ask us to
Alright.
reconsider.
Yeah.
Okay,
Do you-
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there may
maybe
be,
not a good
there
idea.
may be, there may be a need
Yeah,
for future
research.
action,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
may be
yeah.
a need.
That's not a good idea. Never mind.
So.
I wouldn't wanna
so-
rush that.
So we're gonna leave it untouched.
Yeah, I wouldn't abandon it. So,
Okay.
If such.
Alright.
We just meet individually. don't-
Yeah, now, let me ask one other sunshine thing, because this is obviously gonna come up. Do I have the ability to say, are you going to the meeting on the 16th, George? Are you
Yes.
going to that?
Yeah.
So we can coordinate our schedules.
Something that's not substantive.
It's not coming, if it's not coming before, so
Yes.
what, and on July 24th, that's the meeting where we expect that the commission will vote however many questions onto the ballot.
Right,
Is there?
That's
a
the outside
role-
date, right?
Right, is
They
there
may
a
do it in
role
June.
for us that you were, I guess that's when they might say thank you to the committee or something?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think you should all be present.
yeah,
And, right,
But by then, it's done. There's no more.
Gonna get our bonus.
Here.
your stipend.
3%.
My card.
Less than your CPI adjustment.
It's actually, it's a 10%.
You're greater,
It might be nice.
the lesser of.
About a presentation after the fact.
Certificate of appreciation would be nice.
Well, we usually do that
wanna
with
go
committees
there?
that have really worked hard on this.
I wanna know, I
How about you
want
give
a,
him a party?
I would like party.
At least through the end of the year. Or, no, this should, the parking should remain valid until a new charter review.
Oh, great.
All right,
Is that what you
guys.
want?
Make a motion to go home and
You're just
adjourn, please.
gonna have to get on another committee.
A motion to adjourn has been made.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So just.
Oh, wait, time out, public
Just for the record, there's no one on Zoom and there's no one here requesting public comments, so.
It's July, when they do July 24th, well, then I guess I'll have public, is the commission gonna allow for some public comment at some point?
They can.
July 24th, I
Yeah.
guess?
Well, they'd almost have to.
Yeah, they
So
can.
Have to because of the statute.
Yeah, they can.
You can never leave. You can never depart.
Okay, guys, April 16th
All of them.
is our next meeting.